KBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest fuss gag hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Al. And of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
You have found Rochester's only local daily sports talk show. Welcome, and pull up a stool and join us here in the sports bar. It's Battaglia and Tim Schneider today. Danger will be back tomorrow, Timmy. Third straight week this has happened to the Buffalo Bills. I'll get to that in a second. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here again.
You're in
another fun day.
Yeah, your Bonnie gear, which you look at it real quick. I'm like, you're in Padre gear. Oh, no, that's...
Dan DeLorean said the same exact thing.
Really?
So, it must be... I almost wore a Padres hat, but that would have really thrown everything off. They play Florida Gulf Coast today, so I'm repping them while I'm here for the Amherst.
When did gold become part of the Bonnie color scheme?
I think it's yellow, and it's just old and kind of... I think it's just worn on this shirt. It's brown and yellow, technically.
It's brown and yellow, but I've never seen the Bonnies actually kind of go with that. It's usually brown and white. Right?
Yeah, it's brown and white, but the accent of gold, I don't know, it adds character and flavor, I think. It's nice.
There you go. College basketball in full swing. November fun sports month, certainly. We welcome you to join us. Our phone number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Hit us up on X, The Fan Rochester. Just be advised, though, that when you do that, you're not going to get the immediate gratification of a response. We'll look at your tweets when we go to break or when we get a second here. But the best pathway if you want to participate certainly is the phone, 866-4326. But unlike some other sports talk shows, like you can't take the car and then drive off the road. So, if you want to call up and talk about LeBron, well, you want to do that to another show. We're going to stick to the Bills, the NFL. You want to talk the Amherst. We might have a roster move maybe at some point. We'll get to that as well. Here is what is brewing here in the sports bar. And it's a fun show whenever we welcome in our nemesis, Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City, will be joining us in the 4 o'clock hour. He hosts the Chiefs post-game radio as well, taking calls out there. And Jay has a certain arrogant streak to him that we have come to know over the years. He'll be joining us at 4:25, talk a little Bills and Chiefs. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, PJ Glasser, host to Send It In on the BetQL Network. Something odd is going on again with his Bills in the line. We'll talk to PJ about that. We'll set you up for college football. PJ has some thoughts on the SEC, in particular some of these matchups this weekend, as well as Ravens-Steelers. We'll talk to PJ Glasser coming up at about 3:30 today. Also, in the final segment of the show, RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson. Now, Coach, they practice, their practice starts right around 2 o'clock, so we'll make sure they get off the ice and we have some time to talk with Coach Wilson as Friday night and Saturday, the Black Knights of Army coming into the Gene Policini Center, so we'll talk some college hockey to wrap up the show. We got the Amherst tonight here on the Fan Rochester. Laval coming in, and the one non-roster move, Tim, that maybe will happen at some point. Within the last hour, the Buffalo Sabres, as we kind of speculated, claiming James Reimer off of waivers. So the goalie formerly with the Sabres, and he's bounced around last with Anaheim. He was sitting there, the Sabres claiming him. This doesn't mean that Devin Levi is coming down, because UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, is day-to-day coming out of that, as is Tage Thompson. Matthias Samuelsson, little different story. He is week-to-week with an injury. So Lindy Rupp providing that update. 7:30 tomorrow night for the puck drop. Sabres and Blues. The table is set.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thing with the Bills line. This is the third straight week that, and I'll ask PJ this question, is it the sharp money? Is this the public? What is this? And I think it's the sharp money. Going against Buffalo. This happened in the game against the Dolphins 2 weeks ago where, all right, moved the line just a little bit, and what do you know, the Bills didn't end up covering that game. Bills win, so who really cares in the end? You won the game. That's all you really needed to do. Last week, again, more money going in on the Indianapolis Colts, which, come on, really? Joe Flacco against Josh Allen. Josh Allen, what was his worst game this year? It was probably Houston.
Undoubtedly Houston.
Undoubtedly Houston. Baltimore, I don't know. I would say that, third in line was actually what we saw in Indianapolis, and you still won comfortably in that game. It was 30-13, and the Colts get a garbage time touchdown, and you saw the Buffalo Bills, winning there by 10. But the line moved against the Bills in that game. And here you have this game this week against the Chiefs. And, Tim, I know exactly whether it's the Sharps or whether it's the public thinking, oh my gosh, Kansas City is 9-0. How could a team that's 9-0 actually be an underdog and be getting points? Kansas City came in favored by 2.5. That has gone down to 2. And we'll talk to Binkley, and I'm sure he'll be predicting the Chiefs to win later on. We'll talk to Alex Gold tomorrow, also from that same station. He hosts afternoons out there. But I just think, Tim, it's just very simple. It's just the public looking at this saying, Kansas City traditionally owns Buffalo, but not in the regular season. But the idea that you're getting points in the Chiefs, why not take the points?
Yeah, I mean, this team that the Bills are going up against is definitely flawed. The Chiefs are. They've played 7 one-possession games at 9-0. Obviously, they've won all 7 of them. But there's a lot that they can pick on. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Chiefs are a great team. 9-0 you can't scoff at. But you can definitely expose that 9-0 if you really dive deep into it. And the Bills have looked pretty good so far for the most part outside of that 2-week stretch against the Ravens and the Texans. There's a lot to build upon, and they have built on with the wide receiving game. You've got James Cook. There's a lot of things that the Bills can do well that the Chiefs are going to have to adapt to that they haven't really had to deal with so far this season.
No, and it's going to be an atmosphere that's going to be jumping. It is going to be hopping out there. I cannot wait for Sunday, and if you're lucky enough to have tickets, get out there early because that tailgate is going to be a lot of fun there Sunday. The injury update for the Bills, and again, the Wednesday injury update. You never want to kind of jump the gun here and come to any conclusive decisions. We already knew Keon Coleman won't be playing in this game, but you have 2 other pass catchers that we're keeping an eye on. Amari Cooper was limited today. The TV cameras caught him catching off the jugs machine, which that's all well and good. And there seems to be some sort of brace. We know there's some sort of wrist issue. This goes back to the Seattle game for Amari Cooper. So keeping tabs on Cooper. Dalton Kincaid did not practice today. He's got that knee issue, leg issue, whatever it may be, where he came back in the game against the Colts and tested out like, nah, I'm done. So Kincaid not participating in the walkthrough today, and also not participating Spencer Brown. When we were joined by Matt Perino, the Syracuse Post-Standard yesterday, he was just raving about the year that Spencer Brown has had so far at right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. And I'll give Brown this much credit. Seems like every game, like I'm hearing Deion Dawson's name, not in a good way at the left tackle position, whether that's a false start or a hold or something like that. Brown has certainly had a good game. But in the limited action, and I'm going back to the one big play, the little screen pass there to Khalil Shakir, where Shakir gets downfield, but you see Vandermark coming out and plowing everybody over there. Ryan Vandermark seems to be a guy that, all right, maybe it's not ideal not to have Spencer Brown, but maybe the Bills would be okay in that regard. Chris Jones is certainly the cause for concern here. The defensive tackle, they'll put him on the edge. I mean, that would appear to be an area where maybe Kansas City will take advantage of. We'll talk about that with Binkley coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. So that's the news from Buffalo today, along with Taron Johnson being named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Not a surprise there, especially when you get a pick 6 and a sack, which is not very common when you get one player getting both of those in the same game from the nickel position.
I mean, they've looked good. A lot of guys, like, he's one of those complementary players, I would say. He's definitely not one of the premier guys on that defense. They've got guys stepping up all year long.
Oh, no. Wrong. He is a Pro Bowler. That's a fact. So,
sure, I mean,
no.
was Tyrod Taylor.
No, what's that?
So was Tyrod Taylor.
No. No, dude. You have to trust me on this one. What the Bills do in the secondary with Taron Johnson is moving him around, dropping him down to the box. When we talked to Matt Perino yesterday, like, hey, they're going to get back Matt Milano. He's like, okay, but you're not taking Taron Johnson in that nickel pass. The Bills play a base nickel. Dorian Williams is the guy that you're trying to cover up for, and he's okay at filling in for Matt Milano, but I think, like, if you had to pick an MVP on this Bills defense, we can have an argument about this. A debate. Argument's too strong a word. Like Gregory Rousseau has been fantastic this year. So much so that defenses should be paying attention to him. He's the best defensive lineman on this team. Terrell Bernard is certainly great at the next level, but he's missed some time. Well, Johnson's missed some time too, but Taron Johnson at that position, he is as valuable. Can't say as valuable as anybody because Josh Allen takes that claim. But anybody not named Josh Allen, I would put on there. When you take Johnson out of there, then it's just a ripple effect. Then you get Cam Lewis going over from dime to Tim. You got to trust me on that
I will
one.
trust you on it, but I don't see him as the asset that maybe you. He's a fine player, but I just don't see him as a guy like you just said, Rousseau. You've got, I mean, Ed Oliver is kind of not having the greatest season, but I would consider him a better player than Johnson.
No, I think Taron Johnson, and I'm going to be paying attention. How do you bracket Travis Kelce? DeAndre Hopkins comes in. Now, DeAndre Hopkins with the Titans did squadoosh back in October. Here he is back. What is this, 4 weeks later, coming back with Kansas City. Hopkins, you've got Juju still there. You've got some of the same old characters with Kansas City. We did learn this today out of Kansas City, and this isn't a surprise that, no, I should say Pacheco will not be in this game. So you're going to have, what are you going to have a running back there for Kansas City? Kareem Hunt. You got Carson Steele, who hasn't really contributed. No, P. Ryan. Yeah, like, it's not.
Kareem Hunt's a good player.
He's a good player. It's funny how they can bring guys back and all of a sudden, poof, they produce. Because Kareem Hunt, going to Cleveland was, I would say, a disappointment, but I don't know if that's all his fault.
He was fine there. I mean, he was there to back up Chubb, and then he became the guy, and it didn't go so well. But
yeah,
he did a fine job in the number 2 spot.
We'll talk to Binkley in the 4 o'clock hour. Bills Chiefs will be talking a lot about this. Your top story in the NFL today. I don't know. Sometimes coaches. What kills me, cracks me up about this story out of Indianapolis was, we're sticking with Joe Flacco for the rest of the year. This is the way it is. This is not okay. Now we're going back the other direction. And I guess from the standpoint, Tim, of, hey, do the right thing, back in is Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and he's looked okay in flashes, but he's also looked really, really bad in more than just flashes. He's struggled all season long, and he hasn't done anything near what he was expected to do coming into the season, especially after last season ended with an injury. He's kind of, it almost feels not like a mandate from ownership, but it feels like he is given a last chance, but it's way too early to call it a last chance, if that makes sense. Like, Anthony Richardson came in, he's been expected to be like the savior of that franchise. He hasn't done that. He's been sat. Flacco did not do what he was supposed to do in coming in to save their season. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think it's strange that they were so adamant about it with Flacco and then just to immediately say. So maybe it came from somewhere else other than the coaching staff. I don't know.
All right, Tim. We got Rudy online, who's about ready to set you straight, my friend.
All right, I'm
Rudy
listening.
from Webster. What's up, buddy?
Who the heck is this co-host that doesn't know a thing about Taron Johnson? You made a mistake, too. You called him a Pro Bowler. No, he was first-team All-Pro.
I didn't say that.
That kid is a star. He's a playmaker. He's not just some backup depth guy. This is a vital cog to that defense, and I think 99% of Bills fans and hopefully the NFL understand that now.
I mean, he's a fine player. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that there are better players on this defense.
Oh, Tim,
Come on,
stop.
you keep saying
Rudy, I got
player.
this one. I got this one. Tim is
Fine
drunk.
player. All right,
Okay,
I'm
you
done.
don't know what Tim. You are over your skis on this one.
All right.
Totally.
You really are. Like, honestly, like, you have to know this guy, you can put him down low. You can put him up top. The ball gets in his
Anywhere.
hand. Like, he is like a running back there. Did you see the pick six? Look, go back to the Ravens game or, like, the playoffs.
He rushes the passer, too.
Yeah, he is such an X factor. Thank you for having
Insane.
that. All right, Rudy, appreciate
You got
it,
it.
buddy.
You got it. School this guy. Thank you.
Dude, this is what happens.
I didn't mean to ruffle some feathers. It's
No,
just an opinion. Jeez.
It's look, it's an opinion, but it's like, hey, you got to have the facts there. And Rudy's right. He was a Pro Bowl level player. Like, you have Milano, who was a Pro Bowler, and now he's been hurt here for over a calendar year. But now you have Taron Johnson. And what kills me about Taron Johnson is, like, you still hear, I heard Kyle Brandt say this, people don't know how to pronounce his name. It's still Taron Johnson. No, it's Taron Johnson. So let people sleep on Buffalo. Let the public continue to bet against Buffalo. Maybe people are just kind of tired of the Buffalo storyline. When PJ Glasser joins us at the bottom of the hour, I find that just a little noteworthy, again, that the line is, for the third straight week, moving against Buffalo. This one, I understand a little bit more. The Colt game, I was perplexed. Like, really? Like, people are taking the Colts plus, it started Colts 4.5, and then it went down to 4. I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, that wasn't very close there. Back to the Colts. Rudy, appreciate the call. Again, our number, 866-4326, 866-4FAN. And if you want to holler at Tim, I give everyone permission for
I can
that.
wear it. I can wear it.
Yeah,
Let's talk.
well, look, it'd be like me talking about Bonnie's basketball. I'm like, hey, yeah, I wouldn't have an educated opinion on that. Back to the Colts, though, and the Anthony Richardson story. 10 games, not enough to actually get kind of a baseline. And now, the way I see this, it's the Colts doing the right thing. If the Colts somehow with Joe Flacco got to the postseason, ultimately, where are they going? Like, ultimately, you're losing to multiple choice here in the first round. Buffalo or Baltimore or Pittsburgh or maybe even Kansas City, okay? As a wild card, you're not getting very far in that postseason. You're not winning a game, okay? I thought the objective in this league wasn't to make the playoffs. I thought the objective was to win a Super Bowl. And in order to win the Super Bowl, you've got to figure out, all right, do we have our quarterback or not? Nobody can answer that question in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco is not leading any team to a Super Bowl win. He's not leading anybody to a playoff win at this stage of his career, mind you. So this year, you have to, if you are one of the few Colt fans listening here, yeah, you got to write it off. You have to write it off. You'll be better in the end to figure that out if you have somebody. Because let's say Richardson all of a sudden figures this out in the last 2 months here of the season. Or let's say it gets worse. Well, if it gets worse, then you know, all right, the draft's coming up. Let's figure out our next guy. It's been done before.
Yeah, I mean, if you're writing off the season now by reinserting your top 5 pick, I don't know if that's the strategy that you want to do, because that ends effectively Richardson's career if it goes poorly here. But, I mean, I guess it's not the Colts' problem once they get rid of him. But I think he's got to be their guy, at least for the short term, to find out if he's their guy for the long term.
That's it. I mean, and even if let's say you get to the end of the year, this still isn't it. It's not like you're cutting him at the end of the year. But what I could see happening is, all right, rather than going back into the draft, who would be a veteran quarterback that'll be available next year? Maybe Derek Carr, maybe like
Sean
somebody.
Watson.
Yeah, like somebody that let's go back, and that's what the Colts have been kind of doing year after year after year. No, like the best way to win in this league is to find the quarterback in the draft and develop the quarterback. Now, you can point to aberrations. Let's take Drew Brees for an example. All right, Drew Brees was one of those quarterbacks that, all right, we gave him enough time in San Diego, and he got washed. Let's draft another quarterback. And it turned out that all he needed maybe was a better coach and a change of scenery.
Yeah, I mean, both, if you're referring to Brees still, he turned it around. And
Yeah, it's
fine.
like that's rare, though, to like find a free agent quarterback that all of a sudden will blossom.
Yeah, there aren't
into
very
the franchise.
many.
No, like really, like you have Rich Gannon, but he wasn't.
That was an anomaly too. That was like the twilight of his career, and it just like
right.
the Barry Bonds sort of.
I'm trying to think of other instances where like you had Brad Johnson, you had Trent Dilfer, but you never had a guy.
Does Tom Brady count? Tom Brady might count.
Well, Brady and Manning fit into that category of they are franchise quarterbacks that kind of, ran their course with their team and were on the street. I'm talking about guys that weren't franchise quarterbacks, that were out the door and then found their footing with a new organization. Let's take, for instance, and if Danger were here, I know exactly what he'd be saying. Danger, I know you're listening, all right? What are you saying right now to me through the radio? Sam Darnold right now in Minnesota. Look at Sam. He's an interesting case study, right? Like Sam Darnold and the story on Minnesota today, and we'll get to PJ Glass here in a little bit. A second surgery. Did you see this, Tim, for J.J. McCarthy?
I did not.
Yeah, so they're still saying he's available next year, but there was some sort of complication. That's not a good thing. If you're Minnesota and Sam Darnold gets you to the postseason and you're who knows how far you go, that's a difficult choice. It really is.
That's a tough way to start a career, too.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that's like I don't think Minnesota can afford to let Sam Darnold go. But is Sam Darnold that kind of rare, hey, I never found it with the team that drafted me, much less Carolina or San Francisco, but on Team 4 I'm going to find it. I'm not ready to go there yet.
Baker, same thing, fourth team. Solid career. Baker's in there.
Solid, but
didn't do anything in Carolina, didn't really have a chance with the Rams.
See, those guys look, to me, they're B- quarterbacks. Like, is Baker a franchise guy?
He could have been, but they didn't give him a chance. It's tough. It was a trade, but Jared Goff probably fits the billing of just needed to get out of where he was. He made a Super Bowl with the Rams, but he's flourishing with Detroit.
All right, we'll table this. We got to get to PJ Glasser. If you disagree vehemently with Tim Schneider, and give us a call. 866-4326, 866-4FAN. My name's Gene Battaglia. Tim Schneider here, as is the Fan Rochester.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow.
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
And smell the sports with Maggie and Perloff on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester weekday mornings. And start your day with enough sports chatter to make your coffee look like a sleepy time tea. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills having a walkthrough today, not participating. Keon Coleman, we already knew who was out. Spencer Brown and Dalton Kincaid also not out there. Amari Cooper was limited. Bills head coach Sean McDermott on the KC run defense.
You know, they do a lot. Coach Spags does a great job along with their defensive staff. I know quite a few of those guys, and they do such a great job. They've certainly got good personnel, and they create a lot of chaos around the line of scrimmage by some of the things that they do. And then obviously Chris Jones is a big force up front for what they're trying to get done.
One other Bills note, Taron Johnson named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. We'll talk about this matchup. College football as well. PJ Glass, your host, has sent it in, joining us next in the Sports Bar. The Colts going back to Anthony Richardson at quarterback. The Amerks hosting Laval tonight. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader. The Fan Rochester.
Top shelf sports talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
We'll take more of your calls in a little bit, as it is one of our favorite times of the week. Because I think, just to be honest, whenever we talk to PJ Glasser, I know the weekend's coming up here, PJ. PJ Glasser, host of Send It In. The back end of the home and home, PJ was kind enough to have me on his show yesterday to talk about Bills and Chiefs. And we'll get to that one in just a little bit, PJ. But Just the college football weekend from last weekend. You had Ole Miss coming out and winning. You had Alabama rolling there. What was your biggest surprise there from last weekend, PJ?
I mean, both those games, Gene, I thought would be close. I thought especially the Bama game. I mean, the way that they just dominated LSU from start to finish. We know how tough it is to win in Tiger Stadium, but for Bama to win by 30, I mean, that was a statement. And then same thing with Ole Miss. You know, you figured if they were going to win that game, Kiffin really hadn't had that signature win yet in Oxford.
Yeah.
And for them to beat Georgia and beat them by 18, I think that's what stood out. So the marquee games, you know, like you said, I really wasn't surprised at the teams that won, but just how much they won by, I think, was pretty surprising.
What's funny is last week you and I were talking, and we got on Florida State there, and the idea of, okay, what's ahead for this program that has fallen like no other program we've seen. Are they going to make a change at head coach? And we haven't heard about that. And you brought up, Coach Prime's name. And then we hear about Deion Sanders, all this speculation about what about the Cowboys. I don't think he's a pro coach, but for now, PJ, he's still coaching in Colorado, and the Buffaloes are having a good season, and they're heavily favored here against Utah. I'm looking at a line of 9.5 Colorado against the Utes. How do you play this one?
Gene, I really like Colorado this week, and it's honestly just the fate of Utah. Whoever Utah would have played this week, I likely would have bet against them. I don't know how many people stayed up to watch that game late Saturday night into Sunday morning on the East Coast, but it was such a brutal loss for Utah. They were up by 2 points. There was less than a minute to go. BYU had no timeouts. They started their drive inside their own 10-yard line. It was 4th and 10. There was a questionable pass interference call that extended the drive. BYU goes down the field, and they kick the game-winning field goal. And then, Gene, after the game, Utah's athletic director was on the field cursing out the refs, and then he was at the podium talking about what a disgrace it was. So, I mean, that game was – we know Utah at the beginning of the year, they were favored to win the Big 12. Cam Rising just hasn't been able to get healthy. This team has had such a disappointing year, one of their worst seasons in a while. And that was really like their Super Bowl, right? Like we talk about all the time in college football, teams that have had disappointing years but get up for these rivalry games when they have a chance to kind of spoil the season of their rivals. And that's what last week was for Utah. Now this week, going to Colorado, playing a Colorado team that's really playing good football. They win out. They will make the college football playoff. They'll win the Big 12. So it's just the fate of Utah this week, Gene. I think they're still feeling the effects from last week against BYU, and they're going into Boulder this week in what should be a great environment with the way the Colorado's playing. And I think the Buffs, their offense will be too much for them.
I'm glad you brought up because so much happened over the weekend. We really didn't even touch on the Utah AD Mark Harlan. I'm shocked he didn't get suspended here. It's a $40,000 fine. That's it. But it's one thing if it's a player. A coach should never do that, but an athletic director, PJ, I don't ever recall an athletic director saying, move aside, everybody. I'm at the podium, and I'm going to put the officials on blast here, please.
Never. Like you said, Gene, like coaches, sure, players, especially professional players, but like athletic director, I've never – he came out, right, and this is Utah's first year in the Big 12 talking about how now he is having second regrets and he's so disappointed in the league. And I really do encourage people to listen to it because it's one of those oh my God, you can't believe what he's doing. So yeah, Utah's got a good defense, obviously. Their offense has really struggled this year, but Gene, I just think it's one of those, they still haven't gotten over that BYU game. And there's a reason that line opened at 9.5. It's up to 11.5 now. I think, people are just continuing to bet the Buffs, and I think for good reason this week.
Well, PJ Glass, your host, has sent it in. So if I'm wrong on any of these lines, you let me know. I'm looking at Texas favored by 13.5 over Arkansas. Now, Arkansas was on the bye, but last time we saw them against Ole Miss, PJ, they gave up nearly 700 yards, okay? So, and we know Texas is good, but the question is how many points do we want to lay here with Texas? How do you view this?
Yeah, again, another game with line movement, Gene. It was at 15.5, but now it is at the 13.5, but I'd still take it with Arkansas. You know, we saw all these teams that we're talking about in the college football playoff of who should feel good if they win out, but they haven't beaten anybody yet, right? Like if Indiana still loses to Ohio State, are they still in? Penn State, if they win out, even though they haven't beaten a top 25 team, are they good? Gene, the team we're not talking about is Texas. I mean, you really look at their schedule, that Michigan win has aged about as poorly as it could possibly have aged. They obviously did not look good against Georgia. Their best win right now is at Vanderbilt. Like, that's it. So the two best quarterbacks Texas has played this year has been Carson Beck in Georgia and Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. And, like, Pavia is a nice little college player, and obviously Beck's had a really tough year. But I think they're going up against the best quarterback that they're going to see all year in Kalen Green, who's a good dual-threat quarterback for Arkansas. That's a kind of a sleepy spot type game, noon Eastern on the road, 11 Central in Fayetteville on the road. Arkansas is coming off a bye week. So I don't know about Texas. You know, we were rating them so high at the beginning of the year because they had thrashed Oklahoma and Michigan, and then they got to the Georgia game. They finally played a real team, and they got exposed a little bit. They haven't looked as great since the Georgia game, so I like Arkansas to keep this game a little bit closer than maybe some people expect.
PJ Glasser, you hear weekdays on the BetQL Network. Send it in. Our guest here joins us every Wednesday. Two teams in the SEC that are coming off losses. LSU at home, that wasn't close. I mean, I know it was a little rainy night, but come on there. You got to show up a little bit better. But then Florida, I don't know what to make of the Gators here either. Is this something you could play, or you just stay away from this one, PJ?
I like the Gators, Gene. I would take spread. I'd take money line as well. I think this could be an upset this week. You know, we talk about in the NFL a lot when teams have a brutal loss, you usually like backing that team the following week off of a bad performance. In college football, it usually doesn't happen that way. If a team has a blowout performance, they necessarily don't just bounce back the previous week. And I think for people that like LSU this week, that's what they're expecting. DJ Lagway, Florida's quarterback, who got hurt a couple weeks ago against Georgia, was practicing this week, Gene, so they're hoping to have him back. And that's a huge deal because the last two games that LSU has lost against A&M and Bama, they have really struggled with a mobile quarterback, and that's what Lagway is. So if he's able to play, and Florida's a running team to begin with, their defense is underrated, more underrated than people realize. And look, this is a huge game for Florida, Gene, because the rest of their schedule is Ole Miss and Florida State. They're going to win the Florida State game, and they're probably going to lose to Ole Miss. So if Bill Napier and Florida can win this game and get to a bowl game, considering how tough the schedule is, I think that's a huge deal for Florida. So we know the Swamp's a tough place to play. LSU off that Bama loss where they got embarrassed. They haven't been good against running quarterbacks. I like the Gators spread, and I would take some money line, too. I think they could beat LSU this week.
PJ, pop quiz for everybody in the SEC here. Like, as far as who has the best record, if you said both conference and overall, it's actually Tennessee, all right? So here comes Georgia. Georgia coming off, as we just discussed, that tough loss to Ole Miss, where Ole Miss kind of seized control of that game late, and there's no shame in losing at Ole Miss. But you just mentioned, all right, now Georgia's not coming off a blow-off loss. Are you behind the Bulldogs? Another tough game here in this conference.
I am behind the Bulldogs. Gene, there are actually three bets I like in this game. I like this game a whole lot. The first one is the spread. I'd lay it with Georgia -10. I think they're going to roll over Tennessee. The next one is the first half under at 24.5. In 6 games in the SEC this year, Tennessee has been shut out in the first half in 3 of them. And in another one of the games, they scored 7 points. They have been an extremely slow starting team this year. And you're getting Georgia off of a loss. Their quarterback, Nico, is in concussion protocol this week. He might not even play. So I like the first half under. And then I also like the Tennessee team total under as well at 19.5. I just think in a game like this where the spread feels like it's a little too big, that tells me that Georgia's going to win this game like 31-7, 31-10, somewhere in that neighborhood. So Tennessee's been an offense that's been really disappointing this year. Their defense has actually been carrying the way for them, and I just think that defense is going to be put in tough spots throughout the day. I think Georgia responds. I think they roll. So 3 bets in that game, Gene. Georgia spread, first half under, and Tennessee team total under as well.
Looking at the pros here, this is just weird to see the Steelers. Week 11, finally they play a divisional game here. It's the Ravens. It's a game that, all right, these games are always going to be coming down to the wire, you figure. It's the Ravens giving 3 on the road here, PJ? Is it one of those games where you just kind of throw the records out and I'm going to take the points here in the Steelers? How do you view this?
It sure is, Gene. When Ravens and the Steelers get together, and whenever one of the underdogs are 3 points or above, you just blindly take the dog. It's what you do. Stat of the week, Gene, since 2015, Ravens-Steelers game, the underdog is 15-2-1 against the spread in this rivalry. It's just what they do. The dogs always play good in this spot. And Lamar has struggled against Pittsburgh throughout his career. Gene, this is actually only the fifth time in Lamar's career that he's starting against the Steelers. He's missed a bunch of games, either those years where he was injured at the end of the year or the Ravens rested final game of the regular season because they had the 1 seed locked up. But Lamar really hasn't played the Steelers very many times. And the few times that he has 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions against the Steelers. Now, we all know this is by far the best version of Lamar. He's the best player on the planet right now. If the season ended today, he would win MVP. But this is the ultimate test. On the road against the Steelers defense that's had your number. That's why I also like the under, Gene, at 48.5. The Ravens are 9-1 to the over this season. So it is just a sell high right now on the totals with them in these games. And, Ravens-Steelers games, like you said, they tend to be close. They tend to be like 23-20, 24-21, somewhere in that neighborhood. That total opened at 45.5. It's gone up 3 points to that 48.5 that I was saying. So I like the under in this game, Gene. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. And, Steelers +3. In this game, you got to just blind bet the underdog always and just accept the results of what happens. But also Pittsburgh in a teaser, I think it's a great look this week as well, +9. It's one of my favorite teaser legs this week.
It's one of those weeks, PJ, where if you had to rank the TV window, so to speak, like 1, 2, 3 would be Bills, Chiefs, Steelers, and Ravens, and then Thursday night brings us a goodie there in the Commanders and Eagles, and then, all right, we get the Sunday night football, Monday night football. I mean, well, why not play? Why not have a little action there on these games? It's not like Bengals-Chargers is a bad game, certainly, but this is a Bengal team that has not lived up to expectation. They got a little extra rest heading the Chargers, and the Bengals on the road getting the 1.5. Are you liking Cincinnati? Because I don't know if they can afford loss number 7 at this point of the season, PJ.
Gene, I don't like Cincinnati this week. I love Cincinnati this week. This is my favorite bet of the week. It's one of my favorites of the year, if I'm being honest with you. These teams are kind of the same. You look at their schedules this season, and they haven't beaten any good teams. The Chargers are 6-3. Their wins are like the Titans, the Saints, the Panthers. I mean, all the bottom teams. Bengals is the same way. Raiders, Panthers, Giants. Like, these teams, when they go up against bad teams, they win the game and they cover the spread. When they go up against good teams, they don't win those games. The difference is the Bengals have been tested. They should have won both games against the Ravens. They lost to the Chiefs by 1. Even though the Chargers played all their, tough games close as well, this is the best offense they're going to see all year in Cincinnati. And you said it, Gene. It's the desperation. We all saw Miami on Monday night against the Rams in a game that they had to have. That was a must-win for them. It's the best their defense looked all year. It's the best game that they've played all year against a good team. I expect the same thing from Cincinnati. So Burrow and the Bengals know their backs are against the wall. It's a must-win. This is one of the teams that they'll be battling with in the AFC wild card. So I'll ride with the Bengals here, Gene. I think they get the win.
I'm looking at this Texans-Cowboys matchup, and the Cowboys have dominated the headlines, whether it's the curtains or whether it's Dak or whatever, but they are just a mess right now. And I just find it kind of noteworthy here that, all right, it's not a surprise that the Texans are favored by 7.5, but then I look at the over-under, and what I'm looking at, PJ, is this is the third lowest over/under on the board this week. You've got the game with the Titans and the Ravens and the Vikings, and also you've got the Bears and Packers. But then this Texans-Cowboys game is at 42. What they're telling you is that this should be a Texans blowout. Are you following that path, PJ?
I am not. I like Dallas this week, plus the points. And it's really just the fate of Houston. Anybody that's been following the NFL this year, Gene, knows that teams coming off of playing the Lions have really struggled this season against the spread and also straight up. And it's easy to see why. If you watch that Sunday night game between Houston and Detroit, I mean, that second half, just the physicality and how tough and grueling those games are when you go up against Detroit on both sides of the ball. I mean, that game took a lot out of Houston, Gene. And I think going on the road now against Dallas, a team that's obviously in shambles, a team that's been getting blown out in every single home game this season, it just feels like there's a little bit of value there on Dallas. So, look, the offense has obviously been ugly. It's not going to get any better. Their defense has been a disaster as well. But I just think this number is a little bit too high. Stroud in his career has been much better at home than he has been on the road. So we're getting Stroud and the Texans on the road off a tough physical game against Detroit. I like Dallas to keep it closer than the 7.5 this week, so I'll take the Cowboys.
Now, PJ, this has changed, I swear to you, since we got on the air. So yesterday, Bills Chiefs, and what I was looking at on BetQL yesterday had the Bills giving 2.5, and you and I discussed this, like how often you're going to see a team that's 9-0 getting points here. And then when we started the show today, and Tim is my witness here, BetQL had it, okay, Kansas City +2, and I'm like, okay, so this would be the third straight week that the line has gone away from Buffalo, where, all right, the Bills-Dolphins divisional game, I get it, and ended up being correct because the Bills did not cover. Last week I did not get. I mean, the Colts, not a good team. The Bills, have been smarter with the football. They weren't necessarily in this game, but, for a team that leads the league in takeaway, giveaway in Buffalo at +13. Since we've gone on the air, now it's gone back to Kansas City 2.5, but PJ, again, the rarity of an undefeated team getting points, whether that's home or away, you don't see it too often. This is the game everybody wants your opinion on here in Western New York. How do you view this?
Well, Gene, I can just tell you everything I know about sports betting. I mean, the Bills are the side. Right? I mean, a 9-0 team, you're getting the Chiefs as underdogs. We all know Mahomes is a dog. He's 12-1-1 against the spread. They already covered and won outright this year against San Francisco. And it's just scary. It's just scary to bet against the Chiefs, especially when they're dogs and especially with all of the ways that they have found ways to win games this year. So really that's what it comes down to. My gut, my head, everything inside of me, Gene, wants to take the Bills. I know they're the right side in this game. Whenever sports books take positions like this, when they know that they're going to need the Bills, right? Because obviously everybody's going to be on the Chiefs this week. I mean, long term, there's a reason that they keep building hotels out there in Vegas, Gene, right? Like, they know what they're doing. So I know Buffalo's the right side. I know they're the side to take. With that being said, Gene, I'm going with Kansas City plus the points because this team is just finding every which way to win games. And until somebody can beat them, I can't bet against them. Buffalo is going to have to play such a good game. They really can't make any mistakes because it's the aura of Kansas City. It's knowing just how perfect you have to be to beat them. And there's such a small room for error, even though I do think Buffalo's the better team. And I know Allen's been great against them in the regular season. He's 3-1. For me, giving us the points with Kansas City, I just got to take it. So I can't, even though I know the Bills are the right side, I can't get there. I can't bet against KC until somebody beats them.
Yeah, PJ, if we want something a little bit above and beyond when it comes to a player prop in this one, and again, it's always tough when you don't have all the information you would like. And to be honest, I don't know if the Bills know the answer to this, but Dalton Kincaid not participating in the walkthrough today. Amari Cooper was limited. But you have Dawson Knox, and this is a Chiefs team that sometimes will give up the yardage to the tight end. Are you liking Dawson Knox or anybody else for that matter when it comes to a player prop this week?
I think those would be good looks. Honestly, Gene, I'm going to bet Josh Allen over rushing yards. I think that's the look. I think when Allen and Burrow and Lamar, when they go up against the Chiefs and they go up against Mahomes, they want to beat him and they want to beat the Chiefs so bad that they'll do whatever it takes. And in week 1, Lamar ran the ball 16 times. If he had a chance to pick up 3 or 4 yards instead of throwing it away, he did it. And I think Allen is going to do the same in this game. Like you said, the Bills are dealing with injuries, right? We don't know if Coleman's going to play. We don't know if Kincaid's necessarily going to play. And I just feel like the Bills like running Josh in these big games. You know, there are certain games in the regular season where they like running him. And, I mean, obviously, this is the biggest regular season game that they'll play all year. So I think they're going to use Allen's legs a little bit on Sunday. So that's the prop that I'll be betting on Sunday.
PJ Glasser, send it in. Tell everybody about not only that, but you've got the show on Saturday to get everybody fired up for college football as well.
We do, yeah, Gene. So weekday show is Send It In, Monday through Friday, 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 30 minutes. It's fast-paced. You can watch us on twitch.tv/BetQL, YouTube /Odyssey Sports. And it's a lot like this. We go rapid fire through all the sports, NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball. And then on Saturday as well, you can catch me and Ryan Horvat for BetQL Tailgate Kickoff. So, it's a lot of fun, Gene. That time of the year, I can't believe we're in Week 11 already of the NFL and Week 12 of college.
Say that, PJ. I don't want this to go. I don't want it to go away. I want this to stay. Or don't disappoint me as the days get shorter. PJ, really appreciate your time and look forward to getting some winners off of your advice here today. Thanks, PJ.
Always good talking to you, Gene. Have a good one.
Thanks, PJ. PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In on the BetQL network. Your Browns are off this week, Tim. So, no,
they play the Saints. They're off. They've been off all season.
They've been off all season.
Yeah, we
didn't even go.
It was
near that
really
game.
funny because he named all those bad teams that the Chargers and the Bengals beat. Both of them beat the Browns. He didn't even bother saying them. So
no,
completely irrelevant NFL franchise. It feels good.
I swear I thought they were on the bye. Oh nope, they get the Saints.
Yeah, last week they had the bye.
Yeah, that
it was nice. They didn't lose.
Yeah, that's you were. You're going to be here with Amerks Hockey.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on, you're really in Toronto. I know you don't always get the game time, the ice time, whatever you want, but to go head to head.
Yeah, that's a bummer for Toronto too. I mean, there's a lot of Toronto people that are Bills fans. That's going to be a tough crowd for a Sunday.
I don't know what the Marlies crowd is like, other than during the postseason. It just seems like, oh, yeah, the Maple Leafs lost last night. All right, I guess we'll kind of go to the game. It seems like, hey, you can't get any Leafs tickets. You're going to a Marlies game. Is that how it kind of works there?
Yeah, I mean, they don't share a stadium. I think the Maple Leafs practice facility is where the Marlies call home.
Yes, which is the old Coca-Cola. I don't even know what they call it now. Rico, who knows?
Yeah,
it's on the land where basically you had Exhibition Stadium.
Right.
So regardless, we will have Amerks Hockey on Sunday. For the Bills, you want 96.5 WCMF. When the Amerks are done, we will go over to the Bills game, join it in progress. Amerks tonight against Laval.
A hot Laval.
Laval.
They lost their last game, but they're in first place in the division. I think they've got 9 wins out of I think they're 9-2-1, something like that. They're off to a really good start. So are the Amerks, but Laval's been really, really good. Yeah,
it's a brutal division that we know. We have takes coming up. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. And coming up next hour, we'll be talking to Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City. Talk some Bills Chiefs with Jay Binkley next hour. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll have more here on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester. Our Amerks are in action tonight at 7:05.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
To Maggie and Perloff on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. It's the wake-up call your snooze button has been dreading. WROC-AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Not participating in today's walkthrough, Keon Coleman. We already know he's out. Also not participating, Spencer Brown and Dalton Kincaid. Amari Cooper was limited, working on the jugs machine today. Sean McDermott on how the Chiefs are using their new wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, really good player. I thought it was a smart move by them at the deadline or close to the deadline there. And the thing I know about Andy and Brett Veach is they're never going to just sit pat. They're always trying to, like we are, improve our roster and improve every way we can in our football team. So I kind of wasn't surprised by it.
Taron Johnson named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week today. One other note in the NFL, the Colts are going back to second-year quarterback Anthony Richardson, benching Joe Flacco. The Hammocks hosting Laval tonight. Don Stevens will have your call beginning at 7. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Listen, there's always somebody that you're trying to get past, right, to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. So there's always a challenge in front of you. It's just who that challenge is. And this week for us, it's the Kansas City Chiefs.
This is a one-score game. The way these two teams play, neither offense is ever out of it, and both defenses find a way to constantly force teams to kick field goals, punts. It's going to be that kind of game.
I think the key for the Bills is, can you slow down that running attack? Thank you, Buffalo.
Mike Danger.
I might just call him Jay Binky from now on. Binky.
Gene Battaglia.
But I kind of like the Bills to get this done finally at home. They haven't beaten the Chiefs at home, and I think they get it done. But there's a huge difference here, and we're talking about playoff seeding. You need to make sure you are the 2 seed.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
And it's true, for the success, and everybody will point this out for the Bills Chiefs. And welcome back to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you. Tim Schneider in for Mike Danger today. Danger will be back here, and you look at this series, Tim, and the funny thing is, all right, when was the last time the Bills actually beat Kansas City in Buffalo? And I'm going to tell you here in just a second who was the quarterback that day. This is going back a few years here, and this is when the Chiefs were really, really bad. C.J. Spiller scored a touchdown that day. And starting for the Chiefs that day, a quarterback was Matt Castle. Ryan Fitzpatrick was the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills.
Ah, the glory days.
Yeah, the year was 2012, which Fitz, you always had some fun games there, I think, with Fitzpatrick and the Bills. 2011 probably being the peak of that, but that's when the Chiefs were kind of non-existent in the league. When they had you would have Romeo Crennel, you had just a lot of nothing happening at the beginning of last decade.
The pre-Alex Smith Kansas City Chiefs were quite abysmal. They were non-competitive, almost not an afterthought, but they were not anything close to what they've become.
Which is, this is a lesson for any GM, any team. If your quarterback gets you to the postseason, and maybe you even win a game, but he's still not the guy. Alex Smith he won in Indianapolis a playoff game. Alex Smith was okay for Kansas City. Alex Smith had the number 1 overall pick pedigree, and Andy Reid realized, nah, I ain't good enough. And or maybe he saw Mahomes and realized this is the guy that we want, and I'm just going to kind of lay low and then strike here. And I'm sure Binkley will bring this up when we talk to him at the bottom of this hour. Jay Binkley from 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City, our nemesis, will be joining us here in the Sports Bar. Binkley was the first to kind of point this out, the thank you Buffalo quote, because we had him the day after the draft there. We just thought, oh my gosh, you gave Buffalo a first-round pick just to move up a few slots. And as I say, because in case they rehash this, they probably will, Mahomes had Buffalo selected him at 10 overall. Wouldn't have worked in Buffalo because the infrastructure wasn't there. And honestly, I think it all kind of worked out this way for a reason. Now, you have Allen in Buffalo, you have Mahomes in Kansas City, and all we would need would be one to be satiated here in Buffalo. Time for some takes here in the sports bar. If I can switch it up here and talk some baseball, throw this past you, Tim.
Let's go.
Yankee announcer Michael Kay calls the Juan Soto free agent tour unseemly. Yeah, I agree with him. Like, if you're a Yankee fan, it's a little bit of a put-off, right? The Yankees have this historical loss. Sometimes I think the word historical gets thrown around when it shouldn't. But that's the World Series. And that is historical because we never have seen a meltdown like that by any team, much less the Yankees. We will be talking about this for years. That was 13 seconds level type of meltdown.
That fifth inning was worse than my Thursday beer league softball team's defense, and I loved every second of it.
I figured. And director hated Tim Schneider for anybody who wants to do that. But Yankee fans even know, right? Like, you're on the Yankees, and there goes your opportunity. You don't win the World Series, you win that game, but at least you're going back to L.A. Instead, L.A. takes it in 5, right? But there's Juan Soto at the end. And Juan Soto, everybody approaching him, all he had to do, Tim, was say, not today, guys. Not today. I'm happy to talk about my my teammates, the season that we had. Free agency, he was talking about how much he's looking forward to the process. Okay, you've earned that right. Nobody can dispute that. That's a fact. You are going to be a free agent. That's a fact. To me, that displayed an incredible lack of tact.
Yeah, he knows he's going to get paid. He didn't need to talk about it. I think that's the issue that, like, the Yankees pay people every single year, and they're going to offer Soto an ungodly amount of money. It's just going to be interesting to see what he does with that offer and how he might manipulate it into other offers elsewhere.
Well, here's my prediction how this is going to play out. I'm going to give you my opinion on this. He's not worth $700 million. I'm sorry. Like, if you're going to go anywhere north of $500 million, all right, like Bryce Harper, I would say would be kind of the baseline. And do you pass the Q test, yes or no? Meaning, are you going to help your team sell advertising, help your team enter new markets? Aaron Judge, yes or no? Absolutely. He's the home run king. Aaron Judge, you know his face. Aaron Judge is the face of the Yankees, even though he dropped that fly ball. Shohei Ohtani, please. He is what the sport should be touting out there. He has opened up a whole new border for the Dodgers. That's the end of my list right now. And if eventually maybe Bryce Harper gets bumped up to that level, but Juan Soto is not at that level of superstardom. He's a great baseball player. But if you're building a baseball team to win a World Series, that's a much different conversation, Tim, where you don't have this unlimited budget. Most teams don't. Now, could I see somebody like the Dodgers ponying up $600 million? I think what Boris is trying to do in this whole scenario, he knows there's a couple teams that have been left at the altar that had a kitty, that still have this piggy bank full of money, and they're looking to spend on a star to show their fan base, one being the Giants. The Giants really have been lapped by the Dodgers. The Giants used to be right there. They kind of managing their system the right way, and they couldn't get Judge. They couldn't get Ohtani. They couldn't get any. They've gotten all their players, but to me, the Giants would be in play. The other team being the Blue Jays, where, gosh, I would have loved to see Ohtani go to Toronto, knowing the Asian population in Toronto, how that would have looked. It really would have juiced up the Jays franchise, and Ohtani opted to go to the Dodgers, which I think the Jays, knowing that they are kind of that nation's team right there, I don't see there being a second team that's going to go up to Canada anytime soon, as much as I want to see Montreal get another team. To me, I think the Jays would be in play. That's kind of the hope here, that somebody's going to overpay for Juan Soto, but you're not. What you're buying in Juan Soto, you're not getting those extra benefits that you would in a Judge or an Ohtani. The last two guys at this level to hit free agency.
I think Juan Soto, I see your point, but Juan Soto is going to end up getting somewhere close to 12 years and $700 or $800 million. And it's hard to rationalize, but that's just how it's going these days. Like the Ohtani contract and the way that it was structured kind of reset the market for superstar baseball players, and Juan Soto is going to be the first one to benefit from that. And the Giants and Blue Jays are dark horses, but I think, again, just like Ohtani, I think that they're pawns into making a major, major market team pony up, be it the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, or maybe someone like the Padres. Or I don't think he goes back to the Padres, but the Padres or the Mariners as like other dark horse big money spending teams.
Yeah, the Padres, come to find out, they were in on Judge. You know, I didn't
California kid.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres, and for anybody that says, well, baseball has this revenue problem where the small market teams, they can't compete. What are the Padres?
They're willing to spend.
They're a small market. They don't even have a real TV deal now. After the Bally's thing went kaput, literally, you go to Padres.com and you stream the games and you pay whatever it is a month, or what. Maybe all teams will go this route. And that's a different conversation, like how the inequity when it comes to local TV dollars there. But the Padres don't have it, and yet they trot out a payroll there that is, look, it's not at Dodger level, but it's right up there. They took the Dodgers. I would say this, Tim, that looking back, and I'm a Met fan, Mets made the NLCS, but if the brackets were different, the NLCS should have been Dodgers-Padres. Let's be honest.
Yeah, those were the two most talented teams, I would say, in the National League. The Mets got hot at the right time, and they spent money to be able to do so. I don't think that there's a revenue sharing or a revenue spending problem. I think it's an ownership willing to spend issue, and some teams are and some teams aren't. And that's kind of the problem that baseball has always had. It was just the Yankees for a long time. Then the Red Sox came into the mix to beat up their bully big brother. Now the Dodgers are the big bully brother, and the Yankees don't like it. But it's still just a handful of teams that are spending the money. And again, these players are going to benefit because the teams are still going to spend money. It's just the same teams over and over and over.
Yeah, and it's one of those where we talk about it now, and when will this actually happen? Some random day in December, February went to for Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. That's also a problem with baseball is they don't control this timeline. This should all be, hey, this is legal tampering period or wherever you want to call it, behind closed doors, and then say, hey, December 15th, or pick a random day, poof, and you would own the news cycle, just owning everything at once. I don't understand why baseball can't wrap their minds around the idea that you could actually win the news cycle. They think they win the news cycle when we get to, I think it's next week. Hey, here's our National League Rookie of the Year, and they do
4
this
days
slow.
at a time.
Yeah, they do this slow roll, and it just becomes kind of a daily footnote. It's not anything we're kind of stopping the presses for here.
Release it out at 5 p.m. like it's 1994, and SportsCenter's breaking at 6, and they haven't adapted to the new mediums.
No, and baseball has done some right things, and they've done some wrong things. I want to get your take on this too, Tim, and anybody that wants to jump in. It's coming up. Binkley will be joining us. Binkley, bottom of the hour, Kansas City. 866-4FAN is our number. 585-866-4326. Having on your opinion here on this tackle, Jedrick Wills.
Oh, the business decision.
So, okay, so this is an issue, I guess, that's been kind of, I don't know if chronic is the right word here, but he's had this knee issue, right? And he is getting paid, last I checked. And somehow he was involved in the decision not to play against the Ravens back on October 27th. And what makes this unusual is, like, in this sport, in particular football, you need to be held back. Anybody that doesn't believe me, look at how the concussion protocol will never be perfect, okay? Because players don't know how to protect themselves. They want to get back in. They want to make money. This is the culture of football. I'm willing to go out and sacrifice everything. And I know this may cost me dearly later in life. But Will's calling his decision not to play in this game a business decision, Tim? Today, head coach Kevin Stefanski tried to put out the fire, saying it was just simply a poor choice of words.
It sure was.
But
it's tough to recover from that as, like, 1, he's underperformed this year. 2, he's had injury problems. 3, choosing not to get back out there and earn your starting position back, and then ultimately being benched. Not because of it, they say, but that's a tough look for a guy who was supposed to be an anchor of what's been an atrocious offensive line in Cleveland. I don't like it because I want winners. I want gamers. I want guys out there that are willing to bust their ass and put not their life on the line, but go out there. If you're not 100%, nobody's 100%. If you're actually injured, say that. Don't say I did it to.
Well, the thing is, he's going to be a free agent. What makes this even weird, and this is the indictment on the Browns here, because okay, you're going to be a free agent, and you're a first-round pick. If it's the majority of teams would be, you're underperforming, you said something bad, bye-bye, goodbye. But the Browns really are hoping they don't want to do that because as I'm reading the story, Tim, how did they put a void year on a rookie deal? He restructured back in March, and if he does not re-sign with the Browns are going to have to account for this joker, $11.8 million against the cap next year?
The best way to put it is the Browns are going to Browns.
Wow.
They're an unsalvageable franchise at this point in the season, and they've got a whole mess of problems to fix, and this is just another one. And it starts with the phrasing. Why is he even given the microphone to say something like that where he hasn't been coached up to say anything but that? I'm not going to be out there until I'm 100% is way better than business decision.
Business decision leads you to believe I'm going to be a free agent and I'm not going to sell out for this team.
And that's fine, honestly.
No, but then the second he said that, he should have been cut right then and there. And now you have the head coach doubling down. Kevin Stefanski, like the memes of him when he's like, oh, we believe in Deshaun Watson, like he's the captive hostage. I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. He's won the Coach of the Year twice, for crying out loud.
It's hard to succeed in Cleveland. He's done it.
And really the only pathway for Cleveland, Tim, is, I'm sorry, but dude, start over.
It's a perpetual cycle, but I fear that is the outcome, and I feel that that's the correct outcome, and that's a bummer because it's always recycle and restart.
You can write to us at The Fan Rochester. As Peter writing in at the suggestion of Chris, putting up the poll, got to give the people what they want. Should we call him Terrible Time Timmy or Terrible Take Timmy? Yeah, this goes back to what do we want to call it? Taron Johnson's just a guy? What did you say? I have to go back to listen to tape.
I believe I called him a complimentary player, however, an asset.
Oh, my gosh. What you said, I cut you right off then and there. I cut you right off. And we had somebody call in read you the riot act basically. So that was
I got my hand slapped on that.
That was a terrible take there. So thank you to and then
ganged up on me.
Yeah,
Chris, Pete, Rudy, you.
Yeah.
All because I said that Taron Johnson was not the best player on the Bills defense. I don't think that's an unfair perspective.
And we've got Chuck writing in, talking about your Bonnie's gear. Yes, if you're watching online right now on YouTube, and Tim is waving at the camera, or Twitch, you see Tim all decked out. Who do the Bonnies have tonight?
Florida Gulf Coast.
That team, okay.
Dunk City.
Who do they beat? Georgetown? Was that the? Yeah, that was that's the only, okay. That's an odd pairing there. But this is, I guess, mid-major. Life as a mid-major. They're for St. Bonaventure. By the way, okay, you could hear me as a Cheshire cat as I'm ready to have these words come out of my mouth because I've got this evil smile. Colgate?
Oh,
Colgate.
Toothpaste, baby.
Colgate?
My favorite.
Nearly did it.
Again.
Colgate nearly did it.
This is, I think, 3 out of 4 years that they've put them to the wire, including a victory.
Look, hey. You mean you had 8 days to prepare for Colgate. You had a really tough win over Lemoyne. And now you've got another power coming in, Youngstown State. Wow. Yeah, it's early in the season, but these used to be the games where you would just kind of like they were legitimately they were losing to Lemoyne at halftime. It was one of those. What are they doing? This is a program only in year 2 at D1.
That was a fun game to pay attention to. I didn't watch it. I was following it on my phone, but anytime Syracuse struggles against one of these inferior low major New York schools, I eat it up.
Because they refuse to go to Bonaventure. That's
everywhere.
always
They don't go anywhere.
They don't go anywhere.
And they only win at home by like 6 points against teams that they should be beating by 30. Like, come on. Colgate they're a fine Patriot League team, but does anybody care about the Patriot League except for the Patriot League? Colgate has had Syracuse numbered, maybe not in the win column, but to put them on the ropes for 5 straight years, that's a tough look for the Syracuse Orange.
Yeah, the Syracuse basketball. Too soon to tell, Tim, but I knew you'd have a take on that. We'll get to Binkley. Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City, joining us next. Danger's off today. You're hearing the voice of Tim Schneider. My name is Gene Battaglia here on The Fan Rochester.
And AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Bills having just a walkthrough on this Wednesday, getting ready for Kansas City. Spencer Brown and Dalton Kincaid did not participate. Amari Cooper was limited. We already know that Keon Coleman is not going to be available for this game coming up on Sunday. Sean McDermott on that Kansas City run defense.
You know, they do a lot. They Coach Spags does a great job along with their defensive staff. I know quite a few of those guys, and they do such a great job. They've certainly got good personnel, and they create a lot of chaos around the line of scrimmage by some of the things that they do. And then obviously Chris Jones is a big force up front for what they're trying to get done.
Taron Johnson today named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. We'll talk to Jay Binkley, 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City, coming up next. Ameryk's hosting Laval tonight. Don Stevens will be by at 7 o'clock with the call. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It's not like the Patriots in a way where just like time after time and the Patriot arrogance, but maybe for some it's getting a little close there. Maybe it's Chiefs fatigue. Maybe it's, every time Jay Binkley, comes on our show, he's telling us how right his team is. Jay, how are you today? Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City, kind enough to give us a few minutes here today. Jay, your team at 9-0, it's not a real 9-0. You understand that, right?
9-0 is 9-0, Gene. It's not 8-0. It's not 8-1. It's not 7-2. It's 9-0.
They don't pass the eye test, though. Can we, by your Kansas City standards, like you don't pass the eye test? You can't have a block field goal at the end of every game to win here, Jay.
Well, they just find different ways to win, Gene. I mean, they clearly studied that. They saw a weakness on that Denver special teams on the line. They bull rushed, and that's what they did, and they finally got to it. They came close to getting to it earlier. They've done it before. They've done it in the Super Bowl, and they saw a weakness there, and they went for it, and yeah, it was a game that they could have got away from them, and in most cases would, but they just keep finding ways to win. At the end of the day, it's a W.
Well, and now here comes Kansas City into Buffalo, and the last time Kansas City actually lost in Buffalo, Matt Castle was the quarterback. You go back when Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback for the Bills. That was a different generation, so to speak. Patrick Mahomes, 12-1-1 in his career as an underdog, as you know, Jay.
Yeah.
How's that going over in Kansas City? That even though you're undefeated, even though you're the Super Bowl champs, it's Buffalo favored in this game.
Well, I mean, I think they expected that. I mean, it's a tough place to play. Buffalo's a very good team. And, of course, the underdogs earlier this year in San Francisco. I think they like that. I think they like it when they can go out there with everybody in the national media questioning who the best team is, questioning are they good or not, questioning if Travis Kelce's washed, even though he leads all tight ends in the NFL in catches. And, oh, by the way, he's fourth in the NFL in catches. Receiver or tight end, Kelce's fourth. So wouldn't exactly say that's washed.
I would say this, though, Jay, that if the Bills had sort of a weakness, is that they'll bend when it comes to the rush defense. And maybe part of this is that having Matt Milano in the lineup, he's not going to be available at least for this game and maybe not for a couple more. But we've seen teams, Miami, doing this for whatever reason. The Colts stopped running Jonathan Taylor last week. Taylor with only 5 carries in the second half. But I look at the Chiefs right now until they get Pacheco back, and Isaiah Pacheco will not be available in this game. Can Kansas City in any way take advantage of with Kareem Hunt and Carson Steele or whatever else you're trotting out there?
I think so, and I think Kareem Hunt's been doing the job they've asked. I mean, at the end of the day, you look up and he's like, oh man, he's got 100 yards again. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. They started to utilize that more in the last couple of games. But at the end of the day, you look down and he's got 100 yards. You won't see as explosive, even though he had a 15-yard run, which is the longest run the Chiefs have had this year. So they're utilizing him a lot like Pacheco was being utilized. And they find other creative ways, to do the running game. As far as Mahomes will carry the ball They'll do some jet sweeps with Xavier Worthy. They'll find a way to do it. But, yeah, expect a heavy dose of Kareem Hunt. The one thing the Chiefs do is they are number one in the NFL on drives over 10 yards. They're number one in the NFL in time of possession. They're number one in the NFL on third down conversions at over 52%. They are a team, when they do have the ball, finds a way to move the ball, maybe not an explosive play, but a way to move the ball and keep the ball out of the hands of the opponent.
Well, that's why I think, Jay, I think you and I can find some middle ground here, because if you're looking at this, the over-under at 46, honestly, Jay, these games go under. And if anybody that's paying attention to Buffalo, it's a much different offense this year. Josh Allen is not taking the deep shots. He's not even taking the intermediary. It's just, all right, now he's being patient, and all right, you're going to give me the underneath stuff. I'll dump it off to Shakir. I'll dump it off to James Cook. I just think that whoever has the time of possession in this game, Jay, might end up winning this game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last 5 weeks. I know people have kind of hammered the Chiefs' offense without really bringing up the fact of all the injuries they've had. And their top two receivers are out. Their number one running back is out. I can't think of many more teams would be undefeated and have all those equations go to them. They're still top 10 offense in the NFL. And if you look at the numbers the last 5 weeks, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are only 28 yards difference in passing. And people are hammering the Chiefs, the offense, they can't do anything. Well, it's very similar to the MVP frontrunner, in my opinion, Josh Allen. But, no, they're both similar teams. And in Buffalo, listen, they got a lot of respect. There's no other doubt in my mind that Buffalo is the team to beat in the AFC. People want to, come up with Baltimore and say it's Baltimore because of the narrative. And I mentioned that narrative earlier. If Travis Kelce's washed, well, he's fourth in the NFL in reception. The other thing is the Chiefs, they're winning despite a bad offense. How about they're winning because of a defense that's dominant? How about the fact that they have the longest streak since 2000 and 2001, 30 straight games allowing less than 28 points? Baltimore has already done that 3 of the last 5 weeks, giving up 30 points. Chiefs have not given up 30 points in 28 games. There was one game at 28. You have to go back to the Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Eagles where they've allowed more than 28 points. The defense is holding, the opposing team to 17 points a game, 18 points a game, 14 the other day. They only have to come out and score 3 touchdowns or a couple touchdowns, a couple butcher kicks, and they've been winning games. But if anybody wants to know the recipe, the why they're winning because of their defense.
Well, Jay, I think, and this is one of the sillier takes up here, that, this game is overrated. This one doesn't mean anything. It's just another regular season game. Come on. It isn't. And for this reason, Jay, that if Buffalo doesn't win this game, there you go. Congratulations. The Chiefs are the top seed in the AFC playoffs. In fact, I look at the rest of their schedule. Okay, you get the Panthers, you get the Raiders, you get some divisional games. Has there been talk about the Chiefs running the table here, perhaps, and going undefeated in the regular season?
No, there hasn't been a lot of talk on that yet here because people know. I mean, if they're sitting there, at 14 or 15-0 and they've got the number one seed locked up, who's to say Andy Reid doesn't rest players? I mean, Travis Kelce was going for a continuous 8 straight years of over 1,000 yards, but decided to sit out the last game to get rest. They had other, guys looking for monumental games, Pacheco getting to 1,000 yards and stuff like this, but they valued the rest, and I think that rest was more important. When you're talking about a team that's gone to 6 straight AFC title games, 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, they're playing till either the AFC in overtime. That's the only time they've been beaten in the AFC title game. New England in overtime and Cincinnati in overtime. They've either lost in overtime or in the Super Bowl, or they've won the Super Bowl. That's been the last 6 years. So they've played a tremendous amount of football. But I could see Andy Reid resting his players towards the end. I can totally see that. And I know that the draw and the allure of going undefeated is large, but what's more important, winning the ring or going undefeated in the regular season? Because I do think that they would take the rest. I think this game is monumental for both teams. I think this is huge for Kansas City, the 1 seed, trying to get that bye. I think this game is monumental for the Buffalo Bills to just have 1 loss or 2 losses just one ahead of the Chiefs after this game and the tiebreaker head-to-head. That tiebreaker is wildly important. If the Chiefs win this game, they're 3 games in the standings over the Bills, technically 4 games because they have the head-to-head. The same way with the Baltimore Ravens. You can add on the head-to-head the Chiefs have against them. That's an extra game in the loss column. So this game is a monumental game. Yeah, despite what they're saying and what the bill says, it's just another Week 11 game. It's just another game. No, it's not. It's a lot more important than that. The image will go up for either team that wins this game. And if the Bills win the game, I guarantee you on NFL Live and NFL Network, you can guarantee it. People, we talk about the Bills being the team to beat, and they're the number 1 team. They're the Super Bowl. Let's talk about them in the Super Bowl. But if the Chiefs win, it's going to be, oh my, they've beaten Baltimore, they've beaten Cincinnati, they've beaten San Francisco, they've beaten the Chargers in L.A., and they've beaten Buffalo in Buffalo. They're the team to beat unquestionably. I think that would kind of be the two narratives.
Well, the one thing, Jay, I'm cautioning people is that I'm looking into the future here. Maybe because we've been here before. The Bills winning this game, and I think that the narrative will be like, yeah, that's nice, but you got to do it when it really matters. And even Josh Allen kind of mentioned that. And I'm going to ask you the question, and you're going to give a response that I'm sure Bills fans don't want to hear the logic here behind it. But the question is this. Buffalo has beaten Kansas City repeatedly at Arrowhead. And you could blame Kadarius Toney, but that's a guy on your team. That wasn't the official's fault. Buffalo has beaten Kansas City repeatedly in the regular season.
Well, repeatedly, they are 4-3. Mahomes is 4-3 against Josh Allen.
Well, I'm going to finish the question. Let me finish the question. 4-0 in the regular season, the 0-3 part being the postseason. Why isn't it, Jay, that Buffalo seemingly can't get over the hump in the postseason? Why do we have this dichotomy? Bills are fine. Sunday Night Football, they'll get the W at Arrowhead. And then when we get to the postseason, something happens, whether it's 13 seconds or a place kicker missing a kick, or there's something that goes against Buffalo.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just know that teams amp it up more in the postseason. There's some quarterbacks and some head coaches that look at the postseason as the end-all be-all, and they're just different. I remember Marty Schottenheimer having some great teams with the Chiefs in the 90s. I mean, just some dominant teams. But you get to the postseason and lose. They went 21 straight years without winning a postseason game. 21 straight years. That means kids were born. Babies were born in this town and then able to drink legally at a bar in the amount of time it took for the Chiefs to win a postseason game. It took forever, but it takes the right coach. And you look, okay, Andy Reid is number 2 all time, only 5 games behind Bill Belichick in postseason wins. There's a good chance that he passes Bill. So he can win the postseason. There's 3 rings with Andy Reid, plus he's number 2 all time. Patrick Mahomes, how does he do in the postseason? Well, Patrick Mahomes isn't even 30 years old and has 15 wins in the postseason. 15-3 is his record. We put it this way. Tom Brady is number 1 all time. Joe Montana's all time number 2 with 16. Mahomes is 3rd all time already, not even 30 years old. He's number 3 all time in postseason wins, only 1 behind Joe Montana, which means 2 more postseason wins, and it's only Mahomes and Brady for postseason wins of a quarterback. They just have a combination of a head coach and a quarterback that know what to do in the postseason, that's the only season that matters. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of guys. Alex Smith, fine quarterback with Kansas City. Was he getting you over the hump? No. You've got to find the right coach and the right quarterback. You guys have the right quarterback. I question the head coach, but you have the ingredients to win a Super Bowl as far as quarterback is concerned. But you got to have both to win a Super Bowl.
Jay Bickler has 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City. Also, as part of the Chiefs post-game show on that station. Jay, like we've talked over the years, like the Bills are not number 1 public enemy in Kansas City. Far from it. Is it still the Bengals these days, even though Cincinnati has taken a step back this year?
No, it is. It is. It's still the Bengals. I mean, yeah, there's a healthy respect for the Bills. It's like, oh man, it's the Bills game, but there's not the vile and the nastiness that goes on between Kansas City and Cincinnati when they play. I mean, that's an absolute total rivalry. That's players that talk trash. That's players that talk trash like Cam Taylor-Britt and how Xavier Worthy runs a straight line. Then he was burnt on a touchdown like toast by Rashee Rice. It's Jamar Chase talking early on. He learned a lesson. He's like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to do my talking on the field. Learned his lesson because what people say comes back to bite him. The Raiders kept talking about in the offseason about going out and hurting Mahomes and all this. And they talk the trash with the puppet and everything else. Then they just go out and lose the game. You just don't give this team fuel, ammo, or fire because they take it to heart, and they'll make you know it. Well, but they'll wait. They will talk trash, but they will when the final whistle hits. But Cincinnati's a team that talks a lot of trash back to Kansas City, and I think the players feel it too. I think the players feel that rivalry between Kansas City and Cincinnati. And clearly, when they beat Cincinnati earlier this year, there's a lot of whining. A lot of whining from Bengals fans about how you don't call that pass interference on the last play of the game and all this. Even though there was a penalty on the Chiefs the play before, a 10-yard penalty on the Kansas City Chiefs for hands to the face. So you can't have it both ways. And I know people are hard on the Chiefs to get all the calls and all this nonsense. Well, they don't. People think they do because that's the narrative about the Kansas City Chiefs. And unfortunately, narratives are what's kind of running the national media, thinking that listen, I mean, we've talked about it all the time, Gene. Say it all the time, the flavor of the week. I called it right off the bat. Vikings off to a hot start, 4-0. Sam Darnold, he's the guy. All the national talking heads. That's the team right there. The Minnesota Vikings, the Super Bowl favorite. And then it's, oh my, look at the New Orleans Saints. They're scoring over 35 points a game the first two games. Then they proceed to go out and lose 7 straight games. Again, you got to do things consistently to get respect in this league. And right now, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, they've been consistent football teams and can go the distance. But it's not these Johnny-come-latelys that come up and all of a sudden they're good and they're the flavor of the week in the NFL, which does happen. The Dolphins have had that thrown at their feet many times. And how about the Jets? Look at all the love they got. I mean, not only the primetime games they got, but all the love they got at the beginning of the year. That's what happens in the NFL. They disrespect the teams that actually do it and respect the ones that are flavors of the week.
Yeah, the offseason champs, the Jets, and look, and they're doubling down. The Bills are where the Patriots were, meaning these other organizations right now in this division kind of giving Buffalo a little bit of a boost there, Jay, because the way they're run. Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City. Well,
look at all the losses they've taken.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the losses in free agency. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like the Chiefs, all the injuries they took. At the end of the day, they're a well-run team, and they have a quarterback. It's Josh Allen. They're not going anywhere with that guy. They're always going to be a good team. And the Chiefs, it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, those are the two main factors that keep those teams. I mean, you can take whoever you want away from them, but they got winners at quarterback.
Jay, are we ready to kind of take a step back as far as who won the trade in the draft night? Now, I will say I can't go back in time. I was upset. A lot of Bills fans were upset. Hey, if the phone rings in this Kansas City, you hang up on draft night, okay? You don't need to help them. But and then, okay, there's the opening game, and there's Xavier Worthy. End around there, Xavier Worthy again. Tell me how Xavier Worthy's done since that opening night, Jay.
Well, he's got 5 touchdowns on the year. Yeah, I mean, you're looking for – this would have been fun if Keon played in this game because it would have been Worthy and Keon, and we could have talked about it. The jury's still out on that one. That one's way too early to call a winner or loser. I will say this. Buffalo did allow the Chiefs to jump up and get Trent McDuffie. And if you watch that video of Billy Bean in there when the Chiefs were making the move to jump Buffalo to get Trent McDuffie when you ended up with Kyrie Elam. One's an all-pro and one's not. The one's an all-pro in Kansas City, by the way, not Buffalo. Philadelphia, they're responsible for the Chiefs too. Andy Reid, we got our GM Brett Beach from Philadelphia, and a lot of people from the front office. 26 people from the Chiefs organization came from Philadelphia. Blame the Eagles. You blame the Bills for Patrick Mahomes. You blame the Ravens for giving him Orlando Brown for one of the Super Bowl rings because they needed a left tackle. But no, I mean, as good as Josh Allen's been, he hasn't been to 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. Mahomes has. I mean, Mahomes has played 6 years as a starter in the NFL. He's gone to the AFC title game 6 times. 4 games. Let me remind you, 4 games. When you sit here and watch all these NFL blowouts, Patrick Mahomes has only lost 4 games in his career by more than 1 score. You see teams getting blasted by more than 1 score all the time. Patrick Mahomes, 4 losses by more than one score. So Kansas City got the better end of that deal.
Yeah.
There's no question. Now, Josh Allen's that's great. But had you kept him away from Kansas City, you wouldn't have Kansas City. You wouldn't have Taylor Swift. You wouldn't have all this on TV, but you gave him Patrick Mahomes.
Jay, I will say this, that if Buffalo had drafted Patrick Mahomes, he might be out of football. We would have ruined him at that point. You didn't have the infrastructure at that time.
Honestly, we've discussed that. That. If Buffalo had Mahomes, I believe they'd have won one. Had the Chiefs ended up with Josh Allen, we'd probably have 2 rings. Lamar Jackson, probably 2 rings. Joe Burrow, a couple rings as well. But I do think Mahomes would have won in Buffalo. Those close games they've had at the end, that kind of, that Kansas City game in Buffalo, clearly. If Patrick Mahomes is on the sideline for the Bills, that might be a Bills win. Patrick Mahomes is Mr. Clutch when it comes to clutch under fire. And I can't say that Buffalo wouldn't have made a Super Bowl or 2 with Patrick Mahomes.
I think you were hitting it on it earlier. If there's one thing that we can question, it's not Allen. It's how Allen has been managed. And, look, Sean McDermott has done a good job this year. But we all know, Jay, it's what ultimately you're judged on is the performance in January, and for that matter, February, and until you actually get it done. Jay, how do you see this? And so you mentioned ball control in Kansas City. This is the objective. Who do you like in this game? Have you given a pick yet here on this?
I think it's going to be extremely close. I think if the Chiefs, if there is one team on the schedule that I would pick to beat the Chiefs, it'd be the Bills. Playing in Buffalo. We've seen their regular season success they have against the Chiefs. I do think the Chiefs, they're on a roll. I do think they find a way to win, whether it's 1 point or 2 points, a Butker kick at the end of the game. I kind of think that'll happen, so I do think they'll come away with the win. But if there's one loss on the Chiefs' schedule, I 100% would say the Buffalo Bills.
You know who's up in Toronto this week, too, Jay? I couldn't afford tickets, but I'm just
Soto?
wondering. No, I'm just wondering, do they go on a little outing? Do you go into Toronto the night before? Or is that Andy Reid keep everybody on lockdown the night before?
Oh, you talk about the concert. Oh, yeah, I think everybody be on lockdown. Hey, let me ask you this, Gene. I am curious. What would the fans in Buffalo do if Bill Belichick became your next head coach?
It's never going to happen, Jay. It's like asking if Tom Brady would be our owner or something.
Well,
like
I'm
that.
just asking though because you got to think about the guy. He owned that division. He was 32 wins on 35 tries against the Bills when he had Tom Brady. You have a guy that owns the division, knows how to win in the postseason. Imagine pairing him with Josh Allen. I know that right now it's McDermott's doing fine. People love him and stuff like this, but can he get you over the hump? I'm just asking. I'm just throwing it out there. I look at Belichick. I don't see him going to Oakland or Las Vegas. They have no quarterback. I can't see him in Dallas, even though him and Jerry are tight because he's got Dak Prescott to deal with. I can see him in Buffalo because of Josh Allen.
Let me ask you a question here, Jay Binkley, because I'm not going to tell you who has the side of the bet, and the guy that I bet with is not here today. So, we bet a box of wine. And, Jay, let me just kind of explain for you and everybody in Kansas City. Box wine provides value. It provides taste. And perhaps most importantly, your wife doesn't know the pitch clock. The pitch
I
clock.
have to go, Gene. I have to go out and get my mom boxes of Franzia wine all the time.
You don't know the pitch count. It's all good. So we bet a box of wine on this. I'm not telling you which side I took. Does Bill Belichick coach anywhere in the league next year?
Oh, I would say yes.
Well, hopefully I make it to Kansas City, and I will bring that box of wine, and you and I can share it together because that's what I said to.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Let me tell you this. These podcasts now that all these players are doing and everything, the podcast is blown up, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine a Belichick-Saban podcast? They are friends. But Saban did work for Belichick in Cleveland. I've seen that 30 for 30 when Belichick was down in Saban's office talking. They're both bored. Can you imagine Belichick and Saban doing a podcast? Like how football informational that would be. Don't look to be entertained, but look for good content.
He's great when he's on the Manning cast too, and so he's
much different guy.
Maybe he's that's the counter argument here. Why go back to football when you can be with the young girlfriend and you just give takes and get paid? I don't know.
Could you ever imagine him dressed like a fisherman with a mermaid? I mean,
it is the most bizarre thing, isn't it?
Can you ever imagine that happening in your life? I mean, I'm seeing all this stuff. I saw Christian McCaffrey dressed like the Tin Man on Twitter, and he did not look happy. And I'm like, you kidding me, man? Guys don't like doing that. Just set us a door, turn the light. Do like me, turn the lights off, grab a cold beer, and watch Thursday night football because this Halloween thing is getting out of control with these costumes. Bill Belichick, you kidding me?
You rolling on this, Tim, because we got to find. Jay will find you a lady, and you will be in some Halloween costume at some point. I'm going to laugh and laugh and laugh.
I will not because that's what will happen because the ladies will go, you're dressed for this. Because I think Halloween's become more about the couples than the kids, to be honest with you. I think if it's about couples doing all the dress ups and going to parties with other, 30 years old or 40-year-olds and drinking wine like Eugene and hanging out and doing things. When the kids are the ones shafted, the kids aren't getting the candy bars. I do a show every week with former Chiefs tackle Mitch Schwartz. He had a bunch of full-size candy bars for the kids. He didn't have one. Not one kid showed up because they all go to these trunk or treats, and mom and dad goes to the dress-up parties during the week.
Jay, to your point here, and I was off on Halloween night, so, okay, I'm going to be the guy manning the door. In my neighborhood, I could not believe – look, if you have young kids, totally cool if you're a parent, like you want to make sure you're walking around with young kids. But now they have mom and dad also dressing up with the kids. I saw that multiple times. Like, time out, this is not your holiday. Like, and
you know what? I
especially
never, ever did that.
No.
I didn't have much money growing up. Matter of fact, one time I just cut a pumpkin out and put it over my head, and I was Pumpkinhead when the money was tight. So that's what we did, but we didn't play dress up. I never played dress up with the kids at all, ever.
Well, I should say you should dress up as Andy Reid then next year. Maybe that'll be.
Oh, man, there's already so many people do that anyway. It's like, come on, man. They'll dress up and go to our remotes dressed like that, thinking they're wanting the people to think that's who they are, and they're not.
Jay, appreciate you and the time. I have kept you way too long. Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City. And, well, if you're up for it, we'd love to talk to you next week after Buffalo gets by Kansas City here, Jay.
Hey, absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. And that way you can stop calling us to your daddy station, which you didn't do, and you know the rules. But, we'll do that next week.
Sounds good. Jay Binkley, our friend from Kansas City. Jay, be well, buddy. Thanks, Jay.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks. Jay Binkley, our guest here.
He's good. Don't agree with everything he says, but he's good.
As you can tell, we've got a friendship that goes off the air now. And we all have friends that like opposite teams, and we argue back and forth on this. That passion he has for Kansas City, I respect that. And if you don't know Jay's background, put it this way. Sal Capaccio got his start in our business, the Bill Sideline Report, by just doing like a YouTube stream, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's how he got. It's basically what Jay did. His handle's still on X is 3 Guys in the Garage. It was the 3 Guys in the Garage podcast in Kansas City. And he got a break, and now he's been doing night times in Kansas City and doing the Chiefs post game. And look, you can get your start anywhere in this business, my point. But Jay is a salt-of-the-earth guy, even though I disagree with a lot of his takes there. By the way, Xavier Worthy, not 5 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, but I wasn't going to.
One thing that he's got 2 rushing touchdowns, but.
Well, 3 touchdowns overall, but not going to correct him.
No, 5. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns. But one thing that did happen during that conversation is the safety that the Bills released a week ago, Mike Edwards, got released again. Ha! So the Titans lasted about a week with him. Didn't even play last week. He's off the squad.
So he didn't play, and then okay. Well, I guess that's the end of that. As always, way over here. So it's time for happy hour. We got Wayne Wilson, head coach of the RIT Tigers, also coming up in happy hour. Time for your calls on the other side. 866-4FAN, 866-4326 here on the Fan Rochester.
Your bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh,
wow! Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
The Fan, Rochester. Why settle for the silence of your living room when you can have the thrill of sports talk? Ask your smart speaker to play 95.7 The Fan and turn your home into a sports arena. WROC AM, WBEE HD2, and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Just a walkthrough for the Buffalo Bills today, but we're paying attention to who might be catching balls here for Buffalo. Already knew that Keelan Coleman was out. Not participating in the walkthrough today, Dalton Kincaid. Amari Cooper was limited. Also not participating, right tackle Spencer Brown. But Sean McDermott on how the Chiefs are bringing in DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, really good player. I thought it was a smart move by them at the deadline or close to the deadline there. And, the thing I know about Andy and Brett Veach is they're never going to just sit pat, they're always trying to, like we are, improve our roster and improve every way we can in our football team. So, I kind of wasn't surprised by it.
Taron Johnson named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Anthony Richardson back in at quarterback for the Colts, who play the Jets this week. Amherst hockey tonight, taking on Laval. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Listen, there's always somebody that you're trying to get past, right, to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. So there's always a challenge in front of you. It's just who that challenge is. And this week for us, it's the Kansas City Chiefs.
This is a one-score game. The way these two teams play, neither offense is ever out of it, and both defenses find a way to constantly force teams to kick field goals, punts. It's going to be that kind of game.
I think the key for the Bills is, can you slow down that running attack? Thank you, Buffalo.
Mike Danger.
I might just call him Jay Binky from now on. Binky.
Gene Battaglia.
But I kind of like the Bills to get this done finally at home. They haven't beaten the Chiefs at home, and I think they get it done. But there's a huge difference here, and we're talking about playoff seeding. You need to make sure you are the 2 seed.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, maybe we got to work on a plan to get Binkley out here. I get the feeling that, I think he's a guy that, although we all disagree with him, maybe this is kind of like a bigger topic. You might disagree with somebody, but you can still be their friend. Appreciate all the feedback here. Some of it, Jack writing in, which is his real name. Another great interview with Kansas City radio host Jay Binkley. Always a must listen. Jack, appreciate you listening. Peter writing in. Binkley, he's the Newman of the Fan Rochester. That's it right there. Binkley.
Newman.
Chris writing in, talking about the Chiefs flags. That is a storyline, right? The Chiefs seemingly always kind of get the calls here. We'll see this week. I tend to think this game is going to go one of 2 ways, okay? It is going to be, I would project kind of the, okay, it's ball control. Here it is. Comes down to one last play. Or could it be this, Tim? And we saw the Chiefs do this on Christmas Day. Oops, couple turnovers, and all of a sudden, down. The Bills make it. All of a sudden, it's a rout. I could see it going that way, too. It ends up being this party where the Chiefs are like, okay, whatever. We'll see you in January.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Matt Perino yesterday said it's going to be a one-possession game, one way or the other. I think, and it might end up meaning absolutely nothing, but I don't know why I think this, but I think that the Bills go out and beat the doors off the Chiefs. Don't put them in place, but it ends the hopes of whatever undefeated season semblance, whatever. They're 9-0, but they're a shaky 9-0. And I think that the Bills finding their stride right now, and a lot of it hinges on whether or not Dalton Kincaid is available, but I think that the Bills can win this game by 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah. Jay and I have this connection. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the air. Jay has mentioned this on his station. Jay is battling MS, and my mother has MS. So I understand it is just an evil not fair type of thing when you get tapped on the shoulder like that, but Jay is handling this exactly the right way as you would expect him to. So, Jay, get well, buddy. Keep fighting. And I pointed out to Jay, too, the Mets are playing in Kansas City. He's like, come out for – I'm like, I don't know when the Bills are going to – if they're going to be in Arrowhead, but I like going to different baseball stadiums, Tim. I know you like going to Cleveland. But
I'd go to all of them, but, yeah. I would go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
That would be an awesome experience.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Especially with the way that the Royals are on the up and up, at least at the moment. So
yeah, that's
something to do.
Yeah, it would be something, and I don't
might
think
even go with you if you let me.
Well, after that, you're now terrible take, Timmy. Timmy was put on blast. Who was the caller today? I forget. Rudy. I don't know if that was his real name, but Rudy, appreciate you putting Tim straight there for like. Taron Johnson's a guy. Come on. Taron Johnson is the best at his position. Taron Johnson is the guy that if he's not in the lineup, then everything kind of takes a little half step down. The idea that Buffalo, and this stat courtesy of Mark Gaughan, each of Sean McDermott's years in Buffalo, this is year 8, the Bills have been in the top 10 in terms of takeaways. Like, that's remarkable considering that you do have the talent turnover, and now you have 2 different safeties and everything else. And the Bills at plus 13 in takeaway giveaway.
And that's something to look at, too. Not to cut you off, but the Chiefs at 9-0 have a negative turnover differential.
That's true.
So
that's true. So that's why I'm thinking, boy, if they make a couple of mistakes in this game. Now, for any Kansas City fan, yes, I understand. It'll be different when Pacheco comes back. But where I would disagree with Jay is this, like, oh, Juju's hurt, Rashee Rice is hurt. No. Like, you got Hopkins. You'll be fine there. Hopkins and Kelsey and whoever tight end number 2 is. And can they get somebody besides Pacheco? Steele was one of those guys in the preseason. I'm like, oh, that guy's going to be a problem. And now I see him, I'm like, P. Ryan, when they brought him over from Denver, I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a problem. Now I'm like, Spagnuolo's defense, Chris Jones, it just seems like they always are.
If they can find a guy to contain Chris Jones, I think that the Bills end up winning this game like 34-17-ish, give or take one way or the other. But I like the Bills' spot in this game just based on how beatable, despite not having been beaten, the Chiefs have looked for the last 2 months.
We have time for your calls here. In fact, this is it for calls because we have shots coming up. We have RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson is. Hey, it's very fitting. Veterans Day was Monday. We've got Army coming in, which I always say this when we're doing the broadcast, Tim, like, you can't root against the Army. It's like, no, you can't. No, it's like, wow, them in Air Force, it's like, hey.
Hope you lose, but thanks.
But thanks, yeah. Thank you, guys, for what you do. And, you look at some of the – it's funny because their notes always show you what, a first-year player for Army, what their schedule is like. You get up at 5, you're in classes all day, you practice, lights out at 11. You're lucky to get 6 hours of sleep, basically. So just the commitment to be at West Point is just something above and beyond. But just to be an athlete on top of it, it's like, geez. So RIT Army coming up Friday and Saturday. Head coach Wayne Wilson will be joining us. We mentioned in the update, no Dalton Kincaid at the walkthrough today. Amari Cooper limited. He was limited all last week. Again, it's Wednesday. We got to wait till Friday when it comes through this stuff. And Sean McDermott has done something here. Like Wednesday has become walkthrough Wednesday. That's basically what it is. Not putting the pads on, just kind of getting the dance steps down, making sure that we're kind of doing things here and resting guys. And I'm totally fine with pulling back. If this is the new normal here for the Buffalo Bills, not really going full bore on a Wednesday and just getting a Thursday, Friday, and then maybe Saturday, I'm totally fine with that. I think that it's kind of noteworthy, though, when we talked to Matt Perino yesterday, Tim, about Spencer Brown at right tackle and how the Chiefs will use potentially Chris Jones in this game. If they put him, if there's no Brown, do they move Jones in the outside and have him go against Vandermark at the right tackle position? You've got to do a better job against Chris Jones. I think we can all kind of nod and agree, right? That should be it. When we look at the play last year that ultimately led to the missed field goal, well, it's 3rd down. And you have the receiver open over the middle. And Shakir problem is that Chris Jones steps right up and kind of bull rushes Deion Dawkins just a little bit, and that causes the pass to be just off by just a little bit. Pass is incomplete. It's a game where one thing leads to a chain reaction here, and Chris Jones has just been a pain here. We talk about Mahomes. We don't talk enough about Chris Jones or McDuffie or some of these other guys on the other side of the ball. I just think that the more I kind of grasp this, I think the time is coming for the Buffalo Bills. Interesting how this line is kind of bouncing around here, Tim, today, too. Yesterday, 2.5, and went down to 2 when we started the show. Now it's back up to 2.5. Just tells me a lot of people are interested in the action on this one. We were joined earlier today by PJ Glasser, host of Send It In. If you missed that, best way to do it, just download the Odyssey app. It's absolutely free. Rewind feature. You can go back in time. So if you wanted to hear Jay Binkley and how we sparred there, you can listen to Binkley at 4:30 today, or PJ Glasser in the 3 o'clock hour.
Fun show so far.
It's fun shows so far. And we should point out, too, I've never, ever, 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 ever heard this. Go to commercial break, and you hear commercials, and then you always hear a feature. It's, time for the BetQL Play of the Day, or whatever it is they call it. And our 5-star best bet, St. Bonaventure basketball?
Yeah, the Bonnies, baby.
Okay. Just point out, we can't take advantage of that. You can't bet on college sports in New York State.
Yeah, the New York college teams are not bettable legally in New York State.
Which is stupid. Do they know that these athletes get paid now? Maybe even at Bonaventure. Do they get paid at Bonaventure?
They do. Not great, because it's St. Bonaventure.
So then why is it different than the pros?
I don't have the answers to that question. I just know what the rules are. And
there are a lot of things that I would ask any of our legislators. Why can't we bet on the NFL draft? Well, Gene, you talk to people, you would know. I have no idea. You think I know who the Bills are going to draft or who any team is going to draft? Unless you're in that room. The only person I ever know, like from our kind of part of the world that was in there, was Chris Brown. Chris Brown was working for Bill's Digest, and they let him in the room, and he couldn't report on anything. He was just there to kind of observe. And then the story he wrote, like, okay, we got to clear this, whatever it is you're writing. And I just asked him simply, what was it like? He's like, it was awesome. Which, can you imagine being there? But the point.
A lot of pressure, though.
Yeah, but a lot of pressure.
Say the wrong word.
Bring it back to the point. There's so many things that we could have some action on here in New York State that we just kind of didn't go full in on the betting here.
Well, if you're listening on the Odyssey app in a different state, hammer the Bonnies tonight, according to BetQL.
Hammer you came in all your Bonnie gear, even though the Bonnie's gold really, or yellow, or whatever it is. You look like it's Padre color.
Go Bonnies.
Yeah, no, that's not a school color.
Sure,
it is. It is not.
It's an accent.
It is not. It's like how brown used to be part of our IT scheme. Now it's like, no, it's just strictly black and orange now.
And white.
White.
It's like the white of the Tigers.
That's it. Shots coming up in the sports bar. Why don't we get to shots here as things that we can talk about? We haven't talked about the Sabres.
I don't even know what the Sabres are.
Well, they made a move today. Does this mean that Amherst fans will be getting what they want? Well,
not so fast, my friend.
Yeah. Anybody's not paying attention to the NHL, you probably know the answer to this. Who's 15-1? We've never had a team in the National Hockey League go 15-1. And if you don't know the answer, I'm going to guess that you're going to guess wrong. We have an update on Pop. We know what it is, too. That and more coming up. Shots in the sports bar. Wayne Wilson coming up. My name is Gene Battaglia, along with Tim Schneider here on The Fan, Rochester.
Fan Rochester.
Snakes, zombies, public speaking. The list of fears is endless. But the real danger is in your hand when you're behind the wheel. Distracted driving is what's really scary and even deadly. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills had just a walkthrough today, but not at this walkthrough. Right tackle Spencer Brown and tight end Dalton Kincaid. Amari Cooper was limited. We already knew that Keon Coleman has been ruled out for the game against the Chiefs on Sunday. Sean McDermott knows, yeah, it might be tough to run against these guys.
You know, they do a lot. They Coach Spags does a great job along with their defensive staff. I know quite a few of those guys, and they do such a great job. They've certainly got good personnel, and they create a lot of chaos around the line of scrimmage by some of the things that they do. And then obviously Chris Jones is a big force up front for what they're trying to get done.
Taron Johnson named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. The Colts are going back to Anthony Richardson, the second-year quarterback at starter this week against the Jets. Joe Flacco takes a seat. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the sports leader, the Fan Rochester at home, by asking it to play 95.7 The Fan.
We have Amherst hockey tonight coming up at 7 o'clock. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call. Laval actually a pretty good team. They just had their 8-game winning streak snapped. So Laval kind of staying in our area here where they play the Amherst, and then they go to Syracuse on Friday. The Amherst are actually off on Friday. And then Laval turning right back here, and they will be coming back to play the Amherst 5 o'clock on Saturday, which means that's a long day for you, Tim.
Yeah, but I like it. And it's 2 hours earlier than typical, so
yeah,
it keeps me out of trouble, and I get to sit and watch sports all day and get paid for it. So
yeah, so
can't beat that, man.
So you and I have the doubleheader on Saturday. We got Fisher against Utica football. You are taking care of the Amherst broadcast. I've got RIT taking on Army. We'll talk to Wayne Wilson coming up a little bit here. This is called Shots here in the Sports Bar. Stories from the world of sports we haven't gotten to. And, for the Sabres, Matthias Samuelsson is out indefinitely with a lower body injury. Lindy Ruff today says the severity of the injury is, quote, pretty strong.
Same as it ever was. He's hurt every year. It's a bummer because he's a solid player when he's healthy, but unfortunately never healthy.
Whatever this injury is, we don't know, but he's not going to need surgery apparently. Tage Thompson, day-to-day. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, day-to-day, which means, okay, until UPL kind of gets healthy here. Sabres right now are carrying 3 goaltenders. Devin Levi and James Reimer picked off of waivers. So I'll just ask you the question, Tim. When UPL is deemed healthy, does that mean we get what we want here?
It has to, right?
Yeah, like Devin Levi has to come down.
It's time. Like he's earned this. He earned it prior to all of this happening, but the results aren't there, and now the playing time's not there, and that stagnates development. Bring him down to the American, get him his minutes, make him a workhorse like he wants to be. He was great down here last year. Earn that spot back up in Buffalo and become the tandem 1A, 1B guy that this is supposed to be coming.
Make the decision as to who to start and go in Buffalo very difficult by dominating down here, which I think he could dominate. And from what we learned last year, I don't think it would send him sideways. Like, you're not playing up there. You can't get good if you're just sitting on the bench there as much as you try to bring it in practice. And Devin Levi has the quote, like the puck in a Tuesday morning practice is the same as the Game 7 of the Cup final. I get that, but ultimately, though, you need to see it in real time there. So we'll keep an eye on that. 7:30 tomorrow night, by the way. Your schedule regional may have said 7 o'clock for Sabres and Blues. Trust me, 7:30 tomorrow night. That is on ESPN Plus and Hulu tomorrow night. Of course, we will have the game for you here tomorrow night. Winnipeg is 15-1. The Winnipeg Jets, the first team ever to start the season at 15-1. Now, if you're thinking, wow, this team might actually have a good path to the Stanley Cup final, the betting public is not onto this. The Jets right now plus 2,000. Still, it's Edmonton leading the way in the Western Conference, then followed by Dallas. The Sabres, if you're curious, plus 7,000.
Lucky us.
Where I always joke, that sounds like one of the, my brother would do, like, oh, $20 in case it ever happened. Like, well, you just threw $20 out the window, Kevin. What are you doing? Spurs coach Greg Popovich continuing to recover. He suffered what the team called a mild stroke on November the 2nd. Popovich missed part of the past 6 games, what the team had previously referred to as just a medical episode. Yeah, not good, as Mitch Johnson will continue to be the interim coach for the Spurs in the foreseeable future.
That's crazy to me. Like, there's a couple of injuries that, like, anytime that they're phrased the way that they are, like mild concussion or mild, like, how is a stroke mild in any way, shape, or form? Like, if the mildest stroke seems pretty severe.
Yeah, I would think you always got to be careful when it comes to this sort of stuff. And you knew it was serious by how they weren't giving you the information tonight. And some of these might be I don't even know what we call this.
The Emirates NBA Cup.
The NBA Cup. New Orleans, Oklahoma City, 7:30. Lakers, the defending NBA Cup champion.
Matters. We talked about it a little bit yesterday with the Cavs and how they're 12-0 and whatnot. To keep on this Emirates NBA Cup, those floors are heinous. What are we doing? Like, I get the point, but the deliverance failed miserably.
Okay, look, what do you think the point is? Because I'll give you my take, see if we're in agreement.
To differentiate and to bring attention to something that people really haven't bought into.
I get it. Okay, so that might be point number 2. I think, Tim, you're playing to the video game crowd. Honestly, you're playing to gamers when it comes to this. Like, you're playing on it looks like a video game.
I hate it.
I hate it too. I'm like, what am I watching?
It's a sight for sore. Like, I get the niche Boise State blue field and the copycats of that. Like, I get it. I understand it. It's cool. But these floors are hideous.
Look, and again, you could say you guys are being old farts here. You're being old-timey. But when I turn on a game, I want to know, okay, what am I watching instantly? There was a game last week. They're showing the highlights. I'm like, what the heck am I watching? Oh, that's the Jaguars. Like, oh, they're wearing white helmets this week. It just like how many college teams do this? Like, if I'm like, wait a second, just wear
Oregon's
your school
9,048 uniform variations.
At least that's their thing. But like when Miami goes all black, it's like, what is it I'm watching?
Takes 3 plays to figure out which team is who.
Yeah,
no.
I like stick with your brand. Come up with a brand and be loyal to it. Like the Chiefs don't go to an alternate helmet. Neither do the Buffalo Bills, although I think everybody would like that too. Lakers, Memphis tonight. Also tonight, the Knicks, second time in as many nights they're playing at home against Chicago. Cleveland looking to go 13-0. They're playing the Sixers tonight in Philadelphia. Week 11 begins with a decent game. Commanders and Eagles tomorrow night, Tim. Newly acquired corner Marshawn Lattimore is going to sit this one out, though. Lattimore has yet to practice with his new team coming over from the Saints in the trade deadline day deal just 8 days ago.
Jaden Daniels was somebody who I was not buying in on back in April. I was wrong about Jaden Daniels, and I think that the Commanders are playoff bound, and it's 100% him. Like, I wouldn't call him an MVP, but he turned that franchise around, and it only took a month and a half.
But for all, and I say in Philadelphia, it feels like there's turmoil, right? Like, it feels like a head coach doesn't get along with the quarterback, and Philadelphia is just an angry city to begin with, right? They win this game. They're a game and a half up on the Commanders. And you could say 2 games because that would be kind of a head-to-head sort of thing. And that's always the stat they throw out. And they'll probably throw it out tomorrow night. Philadelphia and Washington. The last time you had a quarterback repeat in the division, Tim, who was it? One of my trivia questions.
In that division?
Mm-hmm.
Boy. It's been a while. It wouldn't be Wentz, would it?
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
You got to go back further than that, buddy. Donovan McNabb.
Jeez.
Donovan McNabb, the last quarterback to go back-to-back in Philadelphia. For as much as, hey, it's Washington, this is fun, this is new. Hey, they're a playoff team, but I don't think they win the division. I think Philadelphia takes that tomorrow night. Also tomorrow night, we didn't get to this yesterday. Al Michaels, 80 years old.
Happy birthday, man. I hope to see that.
Yeah,
that's like, a nice number.
That is, look, he's still doing it. Is he where he was before? No, not at all.
But that's fine. If you can still go at that level at that age, you're an all-timer.
It's an all-timer. Like, for me, you and I haven't talked about this, but Danger and I were having a lot of discussion because a lot of people were baseball players. I'm like, oh, my gosh, Bob Costas. Stop. Costas didn't involve with the times. Like, maybe that was the way back in the 80s. Like, you want to tell stories and everything else. No, you let the picture kind of
Yeah.
do this, and then maybe you got to be succinct and get off the mark there.
It was okay, but it could have been better. And I'm glad that I don't know if he was pushed out. Maybe he was, but I'm glad that he came to terms pretty much as soon as he was done with it this year. It's like, all right, that's enough for me.
Yeah, they didn't renew the contract, and he didn't push, and that was that.
I
there.
respect it.
WNBA player Cameron Brink is going to be in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue coming
You'd
in
be invited
May.
to my pool party, so that checks
Well,
out.
and now this story came across today, and this confuses me. I thought Sports Illustrated went out of business. Did somebody else buy it and just buy the name, and they're putting this out there?
I could be mistaken, but I think that it was just like an AI thing. They were like sourcing articles as AI, and they got into water for that. I don't think they ever went out of business. I think they just changed their model, and it was like ghost written by computers.
It's strange how, like, a lot of this stuff is AI. Like, if you like a blog, chances are, like, if
You're reading-
if you want an example, we all play fantasy football, right? And then you get the weekly report. That's the original AI stuff. That's not somebody writing about your team. That's just the computer making fun of your draft pick. The computer doesn't have any, like, doesn't care what you did or didn't do. It's just the computer.
Worst fantasy season I've ever had, by the way.
Well,
not a fun year for me.
No, well, yeah, not a fun year because you should at least, if your team was winning, you wouldn't care.
Right, exactly. I've never had this where like both suck.
Well, look, I'm going to give you something. Like, I think the Amherst are something. I think the Amherst, come springtime, they're going to be right back to kind of where they were last year. Maybe they win a series or two. Maybe they get to the conference final. Maybe they go further than they have in the last few years. That's my positive note.
Filling the BCA in May and June has been awesome. Anytime it happens, it's the atmosphere in this city is incredible when the Amherst are playing postseason hockey when spring rolls over.
And I didn't think we would get to a point where a Friday night in November, we'd be seeing 9,000.
That's awesome, too.
That was awesome, yeah.
They've done a great job marketing. They've done a great job getting people into the building. Usually it takes until after Christmas, and we're not even at Thanksgiving.
Yep. So
sign me up for that.
Yeah, people are kind of on board with that. That is cool. Don will be by. Curious to see what they kind of draw tonight on Wednesday night because, hey, it is getting a little cooler out, so it's not like you're sitting on your deck or anything right now. So time to get out to the arena, whether that's the Amex or whether that is RIT. We'll talk to RIT head coach Wayne Wilson coming up next here as maybe on the other side. Time for your calls, 866-4326, 866-4FAM. We'll also set you up for tomorrow's show as well. Amerks hockey again at 7 o'clock tonight here on the Fan Rochester.
Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
First time since October we get the RIT Tigers at the Paolo Cini. Head coach Wayne Wilson, kind enough to give us a few minutes here. Coach, before we talk about your team and this matchup against Army here, I just did not like reading that story that American International is going to drop down, a division here. Just asking the question open-ended, just for your thoughts on this situation about one of your conference members.
Well, it's obviously very disappointing and kind of shocking a little bit. I guess sometimes you get those announcements at the end of the year, but to get it kind of mid-season here and they've been, Eric Lang has just done a great job with the program there and got it at the top of the standings more often than not, and been a great rivalry of ours. And I guess the two of us here, as of late, have split a lot of the championships, and then we had to beat them last year in the championship game. So and for the players and everyone else, you don't want to lose anyone. I think hockey's still at the state where we want to add teams versus see teams leave. But, the business of, I guess, higher education, some schools are struggling, and they're one of them. And so they had to make a decision what's best for the school itself, more so than the athletic department or hockey program.
Yeah, I don't know which way this is going to go, Wayne, because, for folks who don't know, this is a school that RIT defeated in the conference final last year, RIT going to the NCAA tournament, where you're going to have this team essentially disband. Anybody that wants to play Division I hockey, you're going to have to go somewhere else. So I'm wondering, okay, does this get everybody down and this team kind of limps to the end of the season, or does this all of a sudden becomes kind of a last dance sort of thing, and all of a sudden these guys start playing for each other? And I don't know the way this is going to go, but it is an interesting storyline, and you're going to face that team in February here.
Yeah, that is a great question, I think. And then now you have the CHL players being eligible, which is for our intents and purposes, the OHL, since that's the closest to us. You've got an influx of 60 teams with some players that are now eligible to go on to college. So some of these players are going to be entering the portal. I'd be surprised if some of them haven't entered already today, to be honest with you, because they got to start finding new places. And I think as the year goes on, if they're not able to, then that's when the anxiety, where am I going to be playing next year? What's going to be happening? So if they can secure some spots or get some relief as far as mentally what their future looks like, I think they can really rally and make the best of it. But if they don't, then I'm not quite sure where everyone's heads are, like right from the coaching staff to the players, where are we going to be next year? And they do obviously deserve everyone's best throughout the season here, as far as the coaches being committed to them. And I know Eric will have his staff really making the best out of a tough situation. But as it goes on, I don't know where it's going to turn to.
Wayne Wilson, our guest here in the Sports Bar. The Tigers are home, coming up against Army Friday night, Saturday night. Both games with the 7:05 p.m. puck drop. Coach, there's no such thing, right? We can all agree as a must-win in the month of November. That being said, how important was it that your team took the second game out at Bentley last weekend?
Yeah, it is, because I think everyone, you want to just keep winning, but we're in still very good shape. We've kind of went through before the break, before going to Bentley there. We broke up our season into really kind of two quarters in the first half of the season. So the first one where we experimented with a lot of different people playing in different places, different goalies in the net, power play units, penalty kill. I think we're a little bit more solidified with that. Now we got Matt Wild back, but we lost Xavier Lapointe. We're getting closer to getting Kevin Marks-Noren back as well. So, but for us, we've been to Mercer's. We split at Bentley. So those two road trips where we played the same opponent twice We did lose to Niagara in the one game, but we have them twice back in our building. We're only going to play by the end of November. So for the first 2 months, only 2 home league games. And so we're 1 game under 500 in that. I think it's going to be important, these 2 games against Army, to try and take care of home ice and try and get a sweep here before we hit the road again now for 2 other long trips down to Sacred Heart and then over to New Hampshire. So I like where we're at because I really thought from the beginning we were going to be a second half team. And, you don't want injuries or anything like that. But I think if we're healthy going in the second half, where now our transfers and our freshmen, we know a lot more about them. And with the emergence of Matt Wild coming back, I think all these type of things with the home games are going to bode well for us for the second half. But we've got to get through still a very tough Army team at home and then 2 long road trips before we finally kind of get some relief as far as being at home, being in league play and not non-conference. And I thought the schedule set up well for us then. Not that it was easy. I just meant set up well in reference to league games and where we play those league games. If we can get through this, tough stretch here, I think the second half will be in good position.
You mentioned Matt Wild, and last year Matthew Wild, 35 points in 40 games, comes back and 2 goals, 2 assists on the weekend out at Bentley, Coach. And what does that do just in terms of like a trickle down, the fact that you can have Wild reunited with his line mates, and then every other line kind of gets fortified from there?
Right. That freshman line, all sophomores this year, I mean, they were good as a line. They were good individually, but I think collectively the line is very strong. Matt coming back certainly helps that out. Now that push by having Matt there, we pushed Tanner Andrew to Isabel's line, who both Simone and Nick Caffarelli were playing very well. So that strengthens that. Then we got to push some other guys back to our third line, which is going to strengthen that. We were just having guys play in kind of out of order a little bit, and our power play is better for it with Matt in. Our confidence is better just as a team collectively with him in the lineup. So I think that's a good boost, but we're missing 2 guys still right now that when back I think will help us out quite a bit. But like I said, injuries are all part of it, so there's no excuses for any of that stuff. But it has been good in that we've been able to try a lot of different players in different positions. We've used all 3 goalies now at this point, so now we've learned a little bit more about that. So, like I said, we feel pretty good. We know we've got still a real tough second half of this first semester. And then, like I said, the bright spot is how we move into the second half of our season and the experience level and the people that we have. I feel good about it.
Wayne Wilson, our guest, RIT men's hockey head coach, and Army comes in, and Wayne, if I could say, what's a key for your team to win in this game, to have a successful weekend? Is work ethic right at the top here because you know what Army's going to bring here?
Yeah, well, I think matching their intensity, easier said than done. I mean, a very intense physical group will be coming in here, so I think that's something that we've got to just match them in that. I like our talent level, but now you've got to execute in those situations. And, when it's a hard game to play, you've got to be able to make plays and do things like that. So the first box that we want to check when we play Army is just be ready for a very physical, intense game. So we've got to match that. And then we've got to execute what we want to try and do. And go from there. So it'll be new for some of our new guys as well, playing on academy, and they're always hard to play against. But, it's just very tough. And I would say that Bentley was Bentley might have been the hardest working team that we've played to date. And so I think we learned something off of that weekend. We had to we didn't match their intensity the first night and did the second night. and now we've got Army at home, and like I said, we've got to take care of our home ice in league games here, and if we can do that, then we're above 500. But we've got a long way to go to get to above 500.
Yeah, Wayne, as we got a minute left here, we're going to be out there at the Policini. There's no pregame show this week, and I'm just wondering if Kevin Roche canceled it only because, well, my co-host is afraid you're going to bring up that Ohio State always beats his alma mater.
I don't think he had to worry about that because it was kind of expected anyway.
It happens every year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's just something that happened, and so it goes unsaid. It just that's what you expect, and then you move on, and then you hope the best for his team in the remaining games.
Wayne, thanks for your time, and we'll see you Friday.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Wayne Wilson, RT head coach, Army the opponent Friday and Saturday. Tomorrow on the show, Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus. We'll also talk to Alex Gold from 96.5. The Fan in Kansas City. We've got Amherst hockey tonight at 7 o'clock. Terrible take, Timmy.
I guess I earned it.
That's it. Yeah,
he's just an okay player.
Take.
You'll see. You'll learn.
Thanks for listening. We will be back tomorrow here on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.